Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Leslie. Maybe Michelle Kahn, maybe that's Scott. I don't know. Carrie, can you, is that you, Carrie? Meeting host? I don't know who meeting host is. Is that you, Carrie? Or somebody else? Could you make me co-host? Hello.
Hello. Meeting host isn't answering.
Okay. Well, I am not co-host. So I'm hoping somebody will make me co-host. Oh, I guess I'm co-host now.
I did make you a co-host.
Hi, Carrie. Thank you.
Hi. Sorry, my audio was on mute and I just realized I couldn't hear you.
That's fine. Welcome. All right. Hi, Beth.
Hi.
Is that Scott?
Is, hey,
Oh my God, we got Scott Kahn in the house. Yay, you're back.
it's good to see all of you.
I don't recognize you. Are you sure that's you?
Oh, wait, I'm wearing glasses. Now, how's this?
There we go. That's better.
You're not on your motorcycle. I can't understand you.
Yeah.
Good to see all of you.
How was
Sent all
your,
the pictures of the trip. It was pretty awesome.
yeah, no, it was good. Now, where did you guys go?
Out to British Columbia and then back across the United States to a lot of places where we used to live and work. Went out through Montana, Washington State, Montana, North Dakota, Minnesota, and Indiana, and then home.
Wow. That's awesome.
It was very awesome.
Yeah, and especially because you could take a whole, month to do it? That's
Whole month.
that's amazing.
Oh no, it was,
Sounds like fun.
yeah, would work on Monday through Wednesday, and then we would travel to the parts of the country that had bad, because we needed good internet while we were working, and then we were traveling on Thursdays and Fridays to the hinterlands where you had to cross where there wasn't any connectivity, and it was nice to have like 4 days when you weren't connected.
Yeah,
Hard to imagine. Hard to imagine.
I know.
that's awesome. I'm
Yes,
jealous.
So I think Robin is coming tonight. Is she? Hard to remember. I think so.
Yeah, I think she said she's here this week. It's next week, the next meeting.
Oh, there's Robin. Hi, Mark. Is Chris Stoddard coming?
Hi, Miriam. No, I'm not sure if he's coming.
Yeah, yeah, I'm here.
Oh,
Is
yeah, great.
he? Who are you? Oh, there you are. Hi. All right, well, we'll go one more minute and we'll start the show running. All right, well, my clock is saying 7. So let's call the meeting of the Shutesbury Conservation Commission. I'm just going to briefly summarize what is on our agenda for folks. So because there's been a couple of changes. So at 7 o'clock, we're going to have the continued public hearing for 70 Lake Drive, notice of intent. At 7:15, we were supposed to have an RDA public meeting for 11 Pine Drive. And it turned out that there were quite a few problems, including that the abutter notifications and legal ad were done incorrectly. And so we're going to postpone that public meeting to our next meeting. And at 7:30, we're going to have the public hearing for this lot 032. ANRAD, and then the public hearing, or the public meeting for the RDA for lot 032. So because we're not doing this public meeting at 7:15, I'm hoping perhaps we can move things a little out of order and discuss the enforcement order plan for 7 January Hills Road, because Chris Stoddard is presenting that, and that way he doesn't have to stay for the whole meeting unless he really wants to.
Not if I don't have to, no.
Certainly welcome to. So that's the plan. So let's pick up with the 70 Lake Drive. Do you guys want to give us an update on where things are at and what you've done since we met the last time?
Yeah, I think Mark can speak to it. Mark did contract with somebody who did the wildlife habitat evaluation, so I think Mark can speak to that.
That came in last week, I think, and we forwarded it off to Concom and Chris. And basically says there'll be no impact on wildlife. The other thing we did was sent the information to Natural Heritage Endangered Species Group. They emailed us and said that they didn't see any issues, but I haven't seen the actual letter yet.
Okay.
Unless they sent it directly to Concom, not to me or to Chris.
No, I haven't received it. Right.
My internet kind of broke up there.
Sorry, let me see if I can get some devices closed down. All right. Is that helping?
Good.
Okay. Has it been 30 days since you submitted it?
September 26th, so it has not been 30 days.
Okay. All right. Does everybody need a refresher of what the project involves so we can review it? Or does everybody feel like they've got that pretty clear?
I'm fine.
I'm fine, having seen it.
Okay.
I'm all right.
All right. So I do have a draft of the permit drawn up. I think I sent it out to people. Maybe I didn't, but I can pull it up and we can review that if we're ready to close the public hearing. Somebody want to make a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for 70 Lake Drive.
Okay, second.
I second.
All right. David,
Aye.
DeFont, aye. Harrington,
Aye.
Khan,
Hi.
and Wilson.
Aye.
Got everybody? Okay, so let me pull up and screen share the conditions and we can go through those. Tell me if you can see them. Questions. All right. Okay, so findings, the commission finds the proposed project, blah, 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 proves the mean annual high water line of Lake Wyola as mapped but not flagged in the field on the site plan entitled Notice of Intent Site Plan dated 8/30/22. Does that sound all right? The project area falls within the 100-foot buffer zone of the bank of Lake Wyola.
Actually, Miriam, I think so. Lakes don't have mean annual high water lines. That's
That's
just.
right.
Yeah,
That's right. It, because they have it mapped as a mean annual high water line, don't they, Chris?
Yeah, we revised it just to say high water mark. We got rid of the mean annual. I got yelled at by DEP for that.
Okay. Mapped, okay, should I say mapped as the mean annual high water mark?
I mean, that can be bank. Bank can be the mean high water or the a change in elevation. So if the bank is mapped, if that's how they mapped bank, then it's then you just call it bank.
Okay. All right, then I've got bank. The project falls within the 100-foot buffer zone. It's actually, it's not just within, it's on the bank. So how do I say that?
It's on the bank and within the 100-foot because the grading is done
It
outside.
falls within the bank and also the 100-foot buffer zone.
Yeah, that sounds better. Yeah. Or more
Okay,
accurate.
then 100-foot buffer zone is a protected resource area. Put a capital P. Lake Wyola is a priority habitat. This project includes installation of an additional stone retaining wall and reconstruction of an existing stone retaining wall, along with the associated regrading of the existing, along with the associated regrading of the existing lawn. No alterations are proposed within land under water body. The property has a total of 684 square feet of bank area. There's an existing walkway and stairway to access the water and dock. Proposed work will reconstruct the failing stone wall along the edge of the lake, altering up to 217 square feet of the bank area. The work involves approximately 78 feet of impact to bank, which is greater than 10% of the total bank resource area on site. The proposed amount is 65% of the on-site bank. A terrace will be constructed with a retaining wall, blah, 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 and the grade will be reduced from 7% to less than 1%. Work to be done with hand tools, manual labor, and wheelbarrows. I have this in my notes, and I don't know if this is actually correct, that it's in the flood zone. That was not discussed, and I think this is not correct. So I'm going to take that out.
Yeah, it is not within the flood zone.
That's what I thought.
Zero.
Then I have some findings related to the wildlife habitat evaluation, just summarizing that this evaluation found various kinds of types of habitat. I don't know if guys want me to read this?
Yeah, I read it. You sent it around, so I already read
Yeah,
it.
I read it. No, I read
Okay.
it.
It's
Good.
very good.
What?
It's good.
Okay, good. I thought it was important to do that.
Mhm.
Then it's just the pitter patter that we always have. Presumption, they've rebutted the presumption, blah, blah, blah. And then most of this is just boilerplate. This is all boilerplate conditions that we always put in our conditions. And these two conditions that they'll give us a letter of acknowledgement with a wet signature within 30 days of the issuance of this order. And that no work shall commence until they provided us with proof that it's been filed, has been recorded. not filed, recorded with the Franklin County Registry of Deeds. Work on this project shall take place only when the lake water level has been drawn down. It's the applicant's responsibility to keep informed of the lake levels in the appropriate time period for conducting the work under this order. No removal of trees is approved with this order. That sound all right?
Yep.
Miriam,
Yes.
on the, is it absolutely necessary to do this during the drawdown? The reason why I'm asking is that was our original intent, but we were kind of a bit behind.
Mark, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
So let's see, does it say better?
A little better.
Right. Okay, my question is that an absolute requirement to do it during the drawdown? Because we're gonna have the straw wattles, and near the water, or below on the wall itself. Nothing's gonna go into the lake. At this point, we may wanna consider holding off until springtime. Because once things start freezing, it becomes a little bit more impractical to the project.
Well, this is kind of new information, and we've already closed the public hearing. The application indicated that the project was going to be done during the drawdown period. So I'm not really sure how to handle this. Anybody have some thoughts about it? I mean, technically, we're not supposed to be taking new information once the hearing is closed, and the design indicated that it was going to be done during the drawdown. Unless Janice.
The easiest way, I think, might be for him to request an amendment to the order of conditions, allowing for that use, for that additional time period, if
Okay.
it's not drawn down. And it's sort of a
Then he has-
pathway legally.
Then he has to do the whole noticing and a butter notices and all that stuff.
Yes, yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
What's the timing for the drawdown?
Starting now already, isn't it?
Pretty
Yeah,
soon. It hasn't started yet, but
So,
And
if
Mark,
that's-
you're saying you're not sure you're going to be able to get the work done this fall?
well, I think, I guess it all depends on the day when we can start.
Okay. Well, our plan was to issue this permit tonight. So from our perspective, you're good to go after tonight. And you've done the recording. As soon as you've got the,
So you'll get us the orders of conditions and we'll get them to the Franklin County Registry of Deeds.
yep. Well, we're gonna send you a hard copy unless you want to come over to town. Well, Carrie won't be in town hall tomorrow. But you can print out, I'm going to send you a digital copy. You can print out the digital copy. It's as good as what we would print out and mail to you. And then you can go tomorrow and get it recorded.
Oh, okay. And then we could start the process.
Yeah. And
Okay,
then,
I don't see any problem.
okay, that's good. All right.
Yeah, I think what makes sense is, Mark, get as far as you can, and if you have to amend it for the spring, you just come back in over the winter.
Yeah. Okay, so prior to any work commencing, you have to display the DEP file number.
I have a
And-
question.
Yeah,
Why does it start with number 8?
because my numbering is off. Thank you, Robin. I usually go back and double check that. But you know what? There we go. Thank you, Robin.
Welcome. I was
You're
just confused.
All right. And then straw bales, no hay, no clearing of vegetation, minimum, blah, blah, blah. Again, I'll change this number to 15. All right. Work approved under this order shall be completed using hand tools, manual labor, and wheelbarrows only, because that was part of what was in the narrative. And then erosion controls serve the limit of work. This is all just boilerplate that we standard language we put in any of our permits. Waste products have to be removed at least and disposed of off-site at least 100 feet from any resource area and 200 feet from any rivers or streams. Grass mix. So only grass from a conservation seed mix is allowed, and the applicant shall provide documentation of that. So that's another, what I'm doing, just so you know, Mark, the things that you might lose in here, there are things you have to act on. I've gotten boldface just to help you. Janice, yeah?
I was just wondering, because it wasn't clear, how much lawn area has to be in the conservation mix? Just whatever is disturbed, and then does it have to be mowed only a couple times a year, or can it be mowed regularly? I wasn't sure.
We haven't put any conditions in about mowing.
Okay, and how much area? Just the area that's been disturbed, basically?
That was
or-
my thought,
Yeah, okay,
wherever they're going to be seeding as part of the
Mhm.
project
okay.
in order to get it vegetated. Does that sound
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Do I need to say that? The areas designated, the areas requiring reseeding for this project. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Clear that he doesn't have to tear up his whole lawn,
Good.
right? And then no later than 12 months after the completion of the project, provide photographs to verify the revegetation process. That's something that we've done before, just to make sure everything's stable. I don't know why. There's some people in the waiting room, Carrie. You can admit them. And then a post-construction site visit within 30 days. And these are two conditions that we've been adding to lakeside property projects, Mark, that as continuing perpetual conditions, no use of pesticides, herbicides or fungicides, and only slow release granular type fertilizers. And there's no stream banks, so we don't need to have that. All right. Any other questions from anybody?
So the numbers are correct. They're from,
I don't know if no, they're not. But I'll get that highlighted.
okay.
15, 16, and then it goes to, this was 28, so this should be 29. I'll do my best to proofread this also before I do the submitting. Okay, 29, then we're done. That sound all right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll stop the screen share. Do I have the commission's permission to sign digitally for the digital permit? Everybody one at a time, say aye.
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 Okay, all right, everybody said aye. All right, so does somebody want to make a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the order of conditions for 70 Lake Drive.
I'll second.
Okay, David,
Aye.
DeFont, aye. Harrington,
Aye.
on,
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Okay. All right, Mark, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
All right. So I think we can move on to the next piece probably pretty quickly. We went out and did a site visit at 27 January Hills Road to take a look at the driveway that is to be repaired as part of this open enforcement order that was issued back in December of 2021. And there were some delays on the part of the landowner getting a wetland delineation and getting an engineer to do the design work. And so here we are, and Chris Stoddard did the design work. Ward Smith did some of the delineation. And I just late today forwarded everybody Ward Smith's delineation. I do just want to point out that from looking at that delineation, I don't believe he did a really careful delineation of the entire property because there's a stream behind the house that's not on his delineation, and that's most definitely still an active wetland. But it doesn't matter because it's really not relevant for this restoration work. I just wanted to point that out.
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, do you want to, so I talked with Chris yesterday after Robin and Mary and I did a site visit and just gave him some feedback about what we were noticing about kind of runoff patterns on the road. So Chris, go ahead, and do you want me to pull it up, the site plan?
No, I can share my screen. Did you get the revised plan I sent? I did
Yeah, I
just.
just got it. I just got it. And but we really haven't looked at it, so.
Yeah, no, I can share it right here. Okay, so here's the property, obviously the house down here, the existing driveway coming in this way. I will zoom in. We'll start up there. So I did, this on the revised plan, I did show the existing asphalt berm here and then the end of pavement right under my hand here. This is the transition pavement gravel. So Marion, based on obviously our conversation, what I did is I have, since the original plan, I ended the swale about here, but I did add contours to extend the swale up to the edge of the existing asphalt pavement. So what will happen is the water should sheet flow off the road this way, come in through the swale, come down the length of the swale. And I've added 2 stone check dams to control the rate of the water runoff coming down that swale. So as we get closer here, all the flow from the road and then about halfway through the parking lot and all the way down through here will flow into this new infiltration BMP. It'll flow into the sediment forebay first. So all the sediment will settle out into here. It'll come up over the stone weir and then actually infiltrate on this side. And then as that fills up, if it fills up, it'll come out the level spreader on the end here. What we've also done is I've reduced the parking area. So the parking lot was approximately 27, 28 feet wide. I've narrowed that down to 22 feet. And I've also shrunk the length of it down to 18 feet, which is still more than enough for multiple cars to park and turn around there. But I needed the room to put the infiltration BMP in. So I've removed all that. So as far as the actual damage in the wetland, so like she said, I did locate all of Ward's flagging on the along the wetland area, and then I've also identified all of the soil that migrated off of this slope from the runoff into the wetland. So as part of the project, obviously silt fence and straw wattles around both sections, but specifically around the section that we have to remove the soil. So the proposal is to remove all that existing soil. And then on the next page, I'll show you, we do have a planting list and some wetlands plants to put back in, fairly dense to try to get a good growth in there.
I don't think we didn't even notice, I think, that there had been that kind of sediment that far into the wetlands. So that's,
yeah. I kind of poked around a little bit under the leaves and I could see where the gravel was. So that's why I wanted to really make sure I located it all for you and, make sure we get a good removal of that site. So obviously, straw wattles and silt fence around the entire area for the drainage system. We have provided a operation and maintenance plan for the infiltration basin for the property owners. Basically, it says every time it rains more than 2 inches, they go out and look at it. Every 6 months, remove the sediment within the basin if it builds up. There's a whole list of criteria for them to go through. We can switch to the next page. We can zoom out a little bit. So this is a real blown up version of the wetland area. So like I said, we've identified a number of plantings over here to be placed in the area after they excavate all the foreign material out. What I do, some ferns.
Because I can't read the print.
Oh yeah, sorry. Oops. Go away. Yeah, so I did some sensitive ferns, some fiddlehead ferns, and a high bush blueberry bush in here. I found them on a town website one other town had an approved list of wetlands plants, so I kind of thought they fit the area. Plus, in the area, I saw a bunch of other ferns and stuff, so I kind of thought those would all fit in that area fairly well. We did add some, so I have details for the stone check dam, the infiltration basin, what the swale will look like on the edge of the road. And then I did add this is kind of a standard detail for slope stabilization matting. It's not anticipated to need it, but it's there just in case we get a slope or something. And then just the straw wattles and sediment silt fencing detail as well. I think based on reading the enforcement order, I think this addresses all of the commission's concerns. And I can answer any questions that you folks have.
So I've got a draft letter for us to approve this, but one of my questions is about the BMP maintenance, because if this was like an NOI, we might put a perpetual condition in. And I'm wondering if in lieu of that, because this is an enforcement order, if we could require of the landowner that she send us a written acknowledgement or an agreement that she will that she understands what the maintenance requirements are and that she'll
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable request. I mean, because it is a maintenance issue now. Obviously we have something in there that needs to be maintained rather than just let the trees and stuff grow. So
I think historically there were stormwater features on this property that were maybe the landowner didn't know how to maintain, and so they kind of fell apart over time. So
yep, absolutely. No, I think that's a very reasonable request or by the commission.
Other people have questions?
No.
Okay. All right, why don't we stop the screen share? And I'm looking at the time, and it's almost 7:30. I guess we could quickly pull up that letter if I can open it quickly and look it over. Did I send it to people? I can't remember if I did. Send a draft. I may not
No,
have.
I didn't see it.
Okay, I think I was just working on it. Let me see if I can find it. And maybe we can do this quickly before we go to the next item. All right. Okay, I'm going to, and Carrie, could you just keep track of people coming in? Make sure they're not in the waiting room. Okay, everybody see this?
Yep.
Okay, so thank you. We've got to meet with us tonight. This will be a letter for tomorrow. This is to follow up on condition 3 of the enforcement order, which required you to submit a repair and mitigation plan. I'll check the tech. I know the fonts are different sizes. So the enforcement order was issued due to findings of unapproved soil disturbance in a 100-foot buffer zone of a bordering vegetated wetland protected by blah, blah, blah. That unapproved. That's the findings that there was unapproved. Okay. The proposed mitigation plan involves work within the 100-foot buffer zone of the A series. And actually it's work within the A series, which I hadn't realized. Within the A series vegetated and its buffer zone and its 100-foot buffer zone as mapped on the site plan and also the wetland delineation report. And then I said, based on site visits conducted in 2021 by the commission finds that additional protected resource areas are present on this property, but are neither mapped nor flagged in the field. Is that okay?
Yeah.
The commission approves the submitted mitigation plan with the following conditions. Final dismissal of the enforcement order is contingent upon the commission inspection and approval of the completed work. And so this is some boilerplate from NOIs. One thing I wanted to ask people was, what time frame do we want to give the landowner for completing the work? We had originally wanted all the work done by last May. now we're getting into the fall, so I think we need to give them a date.
Can I?
Does Chris have a date?
Chris, do you have a date?
I don't, but I don't see why the actual BMP and stormwater work can't be finished this year. And I would be nervous of planting the plantings this fall. So maybe you have a dual date, stormwater BMP and stormwater infrastructure finished by Thanksgiving, I don't, whatever the date in the fall. And then the plantings be finished at some point in the growing season of next year.
Complete the required stormwater
Infrastructure.
infrastructure, thank you, good word. Structure no later than, we'll give her a little bit extra time, December 31st. How about that? Give her
Yeah, that's reasonable.
2022. And complete the planting plan by April 15th, 2023.
And actually in the O&M plan, it does require that if the plantings die, that they are to obviously be replaced. So that's,
I'm sorry, but what?
I said in the O&M plan, we did specify that all the plantings need to take. So if they die
Right.
within 6 to 12 months, they'll be required to replant them. So.
Yes, shall notify them no less than 48 hours before the work is to begin, just so we know it's happening. Remember, we can do site visits. These are the site plans and the narrative that we're basing this on. My computer freezing. Oh my God. I'm gonna stop the screen share if I can. All right. New computer. Let me see if I can do something here to get my computer to work. It's done this a couple times lately, and then I had to restart it. So I can't finish this. And I don't have the agenda either. This is great. All right, Chris, I'm gonna suggest that we review this later in the meeting with the hope that my draft unfreezes, just so we're not left hanging here. Is that okay with you? And we'll, I don't think anything else is very noteworthy.
Okay.
For now.
Sounds
All right.
good.
Yeah, I appreciate you folks taking the time to hear this. And
So we'll send a digital copy. Carrie, you
Okay.
have your raised, I see.
I have an option to stop sharing your screen. Do you want me to do that?
Yeah, why don't you do that?
There we go.
thank you. Have a wonderful night.
Okay. All right, let's move on, and I'm gonna probably need to try to pull up the agenda. Carrie, could you send me the agenda to my email, and I'll just pull it up on my phone so I can follow along because I don't have it.
Yeah.
So the next thing on our agenda is to open the public hearing for the ANRAD for lot 032, 66 Leverett Road, which is a wetland delineation project being proposed by the town of Shutesbury and involves a wetland delineation conducted by the town's wetland consultants, environmental consultants, Fuss and O'Neill. Who's here to talk about this? We have, can you see who we have? You got Mary.
Matt Cassane with Fuss and O'Neill.
Oh, great. Hi, Matt. So what we want to do is open this public hearing and sort of talk about what our lay of the land is going to be. And my thought is that if if we decide to move forward, as we have discussed with getting a third-party consultant, that we would delay any discussion about the ANRAD and the wetland delineations until there's been a third-party review. So there's been a discussion about the town, the Conservation Commission using a state statute that and also it's in our bylaw that allows us to retain an independent third-party reviewer to review wetland delineations. We discussed this at the last meeting with the select board when we talked generally about doing this. And I've done a little bit of exploration and talked with some other consultants as well as with DEP about this, just to be certain that we did have the statutory authority to do this, and it's been confirmed that we do. And the reasoning that's been shared with me, I talked with a consultant from MACC, is that towns often, when they're looking at projects that are presented by the town, want to make sure that they're being independent and that there's no undue accusations of self-dealing, meaning, you know, that we're not in some way giving favor to the town because we're part of the town. And so by hiring a 53G consultant to do an independent evaluation, we're making it really clear that we're doing our due diligence to be certain that these wetland delineations are correct, because they will guide future projects and decide, it will be used to guide what kind of permits are needed for future projects. So we want to have some discussion about that at this point, or do we want to have, how does the commission want to proceed? And how does the applicant want to proceed?
Yeah, I think we should go ahead and have an independent person do the review.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement with that moving forward to allow for the third-party review to certify that.
Beth and Robin and Scott?
Yeah, I agree.
Yep, I agree.
I as well.
Yeah. And we're doing this not because we don't have confidence that Fuss and O'Neill has done an excellent job. That's not at all what this is about, or that we think somehow the town isn't doing its due diligence. It's really, there have been concerns raised by residents, and they're legitimate concerns that it is difficult to do wetland delineations during a drought because you have to rely on soils testing, and a part of the wetland area under investigation was mowed shortly before the delineation, which again doesn't make it impossible, but is just a complicating factor. And because there's just a lot of concern about making sure the environmental conditions are really well understood on this property, I think that makes sense. So we do have a proposal that we obtained from Emily Stockman, who is a wetland scientist who's done third-party reviews for the commission on a number of occasions. She's really excellent and does a very thoughtful and diligent job. She was our third-party reviewer through all of the ANRADs for the solar projects. And so for us to go forward, the commission has to vote to approve that contract, and the town has to make the funds available. And once the funds are deposited into an appropriate account, and I give Emily a signed proposal, then she can get to work.
Can I make a motion to approve Emily's proposal?
Yes, you can.
Okay, I make a motion to approve Emily's proposal as a third-party reviewer for the project.
Second, is there a second?
I second.
Okay, David.
Aye.
Aye. Harrington.
Aye.
Khan.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Thank you. I will sign this and get it to Emily tomorrow. She emailed me with some possible dates that she's holding open in the field for the field work. And I talked with Marianne and Matt today by phone just to talk about those scheduling issues. Because what happens is, she has to go out and do the field work, then she has to make comments. Usually the process is that she gives the comments to us and to the applicant, and the applicant has an opportunity to respond. And then we have a final meeting where she presents her report. Usually that would be the meeting where we would then issue the ORAD. So she would also give us a draft language for the ORAD. So I know that there's a desire to get this done in a really timely way. It might mean having to change our meeting schedule. And I see some people in the waiting room and I cannot, because my screen's frozen, I can't admit them. Thanks. Because of that, in an effort to be responsive, I'd like to suggest that the commission perhaps think about maybe scheduling an extra meeting in November, perhaps in the earlier part of November, just to expedite things. I have to find out what Emily's availability is for an earlier meeting. I know she's available on the 17th. We would ordinarily meet on the 10th. The question is if maybe there's an even earlier date that's possible. So I will explore that with her, but we do need to continue to a date certain. So my question would be, if all fails, could we plan for the 10th? And
Yeah.
if we do the 10th, we can't.
The 10th is our meeting, right?
Right, but if it turned out that Emily was available sooner, we can't do it sooner if we've continued to the 10th.
Okay.
Is that correct? I think.
Right.
We could continue it to our next meeting and then we
Yeah.
can figure it out from there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say
Yeah.
that sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So unfortunately, I don't have the agenda for next week because my computer's frozen. If somebody could go on the town website and tell me what time we have available in the schedule, that'd be great. Any of you do that?
I have it pulled up.
Thank you.
So the times that are already booked is 7, 7:15, and 7:30. Anything beyond that is available.
Okay, why don't we do 7:45 on October 27th? Is that agreeable?
Mhm.
Okay, and if it means that we are not ready and we're just going to continue, at least we have that placeholder so we can make that decision at that point. So would somebody make a motion to continue? And is that agreeable? Is that agreeable to Fuss O'Neill and Marianne and?
Yeah, because that will allow us then, if there is a way to have an earlier meeting, we can still do that. So
Great. Okay, so
I'll make a motion to continue this till October 27th at 7:45, the public hearing for 66 Leverett Road.
all right, second.
Second.
And David,
Aye.
Harrington,
Aye.
Han.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Can somebody send me the agenda? I don't see the agenda. Oh,
I
'cause
did send it to you.
I have it on.
You have a question?
Yes, there's a question. Who has a question?
Read.
Rita. Go ahead. Rita.
So I didn't hear a figure for Emily Stockman, and that amount of money needs to be designated where that's coming from and how much it is.
I sent the proposal to Marianne. I don't have it in front of me because my computer's frozen, but I believe you have it. Marianne, do you have it? You're muted. You want to respond?
Yeah, I'm gonna get I'll have to look it up. I'll get it. It'll take me 30 seconds.
And I asked Marianne about whether the funding had been approved, and it sounded like she had a source for it. I had sent it on Tuesday thinking that perhaps the select board would vote on it at the Tuesday meeting, so I was surprised that that didn't happen.
Carrie has her hand up there too.
I have it pulled up if you want me to share it.
Great.
And there's somebody in the waiting room.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
We
Yeah, we
may-
just-
yeah, we can.
So it's, I can't make it out. Is it 2970?
Yeah, it looks that.
Yeah. 2,970. So does Mary Ann have an idea where that money would come from out of the budget? Or Rita?
Yes, yeah, there are there's a town account
Okay.
that's specifically for Lot 032 environmental site work. And it can come out of it, but it can't happen until next week because the town treasurer is on vacation. And I'm not sure what day he's due back, and I'm not going to email him because I want to respect his vacation time.
So we have already voted to continue the public hearing. So we really shouldn't be deliberating outside of the public hearing at this point, is my understanding. Is that correct? Somebody?
So I don't think we're deliberating. I think we're just talking about the contract for the town.
Yeah.
So that's really where the funds come from, I think, is outside.
Yeah, it's not our purview, really.
Yeah, it's. So does that answer Rita's question? Rita's got her hand up.
I'm not going to speak until recognized.
Go ahead, Rita. I'm sorry. I'm trying.
Okay, that's okay. So it's clear that she will not be paid until the work is completed. I mean, the money will be set aside, but she doesn't get paid until completion of the work.
That's correct. However, she will not begin the work until it's been set aside into an escrow account. So she has to have confirmation that the funds have been deposited in the escrow account before she can begin any work.
Okay, that will be done.
And then she would invoice it after the work is done. That's correct. If you give me just a second, I am going to try my best to log in on my phone so that I can see if I can reset my computer. One sec. How do you do this? Where are the meetings on?
So we don't need to screen share anymore. Thanks. There we go.
Okay. Look. All right. Well, I'm sorry for the delay, people. I've been having serious computer problem here. All right, I'm in the waiting room, so you could let me in. Okay. All right, is this working?
Yes.
All right. I am going to restart my computer then. All right, so the next thing we have is to open
We can't hear you now. If you're talking, we can't hear you, Miriam.
She looks frozen.
If you have access to the chat, she may be able to see the chat, even though the video is frozen.
Okay. Can people hear me?
There we go. Yep, got you now.
Okay, thank you. And I'm rebooting my computer so that I can be a little bit more functional. Okay, so I was trying to open the public meeting for the RDA for 66 Leverett Road, Lot 032, which is a project being brought by the town of Shutesbury with their representatives, Fuss and O'Neill, to do environmental investigations on Lot 032. I imagine that we're going to want to hear tonight some discussion from Fuss and O'Neill about what they're planning on doing. And I'd like to give them some time to do that. And I want to also be mindful if the commission needs to ask some questions. And also if there's any members of the public that want to make any comments or ask any questions. So I want to try to be efficient with our time, but before we get into that, there is an issue which has been raised that I wanted to discuss with the applicants, which is that the question has been raised whether we can entertain this RDA when we have also just determined that we don't have enough information to issue an approval of the wetland delineations, because when you issue a determination permit under an RDA, it's called a determination of applicability, you are making a ruling about jurisdiction. And that means you're making a ruling about which wetlands you believe are existing in the vicinity of the project area, and what jurisdiction you have, the commission has, whether it's under the Wetlands Protection Act or the town bylaw. So that's a question that I think we should have a discussion about, because it's been suggested by a couple of consultants that I've spoken with that we should delay approving any determination until we have the wetland delineation first. Because it's sort of putting the cart ahead of the horse. If we were to issue a determination, we would be making a ruling about something that we just said we didn't have enough information to make a ruling about. So I'd like to kind of have some discussion about that, maybe hear from the commission what their thoughts are about it, and then maybe we could have the discussion with the applicant. Can people hear me?
I can. Maybe I'll jump in, Miriam, and just ask. I think it's a good point, and I guess that reasoning makes sense to me. I'm wondering, if Rita or Matt, if from your perspective, if we were to sequence things that way, I think the town filled us out trying to get, all of the paperwork needed kind of rolling and moving along. But does that delay in sequencing it that way pose any problems in terms of the timeline?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think we want to make clear that we want to move this process along. We're not attempting to delay things. We really want to accomplish as much as we can, as quickly as we can, to assist the town. So I just want to know that I talked with Matt and Mary Ann and Penny Jakes about this earlier this afternoon. And then after that, I had a couple consultations with DEP and with a consultant from MACC, the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissioners, that gives us technical support. And I also spoke with a conservation agent from another town. And they all, the general consensus was that in issuing a determination, we're making a ruling, and it's problematic to be making a ruling about wetland jurisdiction when we don't have an approved wetland delineation.
So Mary Ann and Matt both have hands up.
Yeah,
You can see them.
Matt, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you. So I think one of the things that we kind of wanted to bring up and just kind of make you aware of was in our RDA, under the determinations request section of the form, we did not check to request a determination on whether the boundaries of the resource areas depicted on our plans and our maps referenced below are accurately delineated. So we are not requesting through the RDA, I guess, certification of our delineation or any sort of approval of our delineation. And that's not in our past, that's not a box that we need to check for an RDA. So, we're not asking the commission through this RDA to kind of certify the wetland delineation that was completed. I think, obviously the ANRAD and the RDA are being submitted concurrently. The purpose behind the ANRAD was more forward-looking toward any sort of NOI that is going to be required during construction of the library. It wasn't, really submitted, I guess, as, because we believe that we needed it for this RDA. I think, I know that you've talked to some other, firms and the DEP. I do, wonder if it's kind of a tricky precedent to set that an ANRAD or an ORAD issued by the Conservation Commission would need to be in hand to file an RDA in front of the Conservation Commission. I just kind of worry about that. I don't know. I mean, if the Conservation Commission can kind of explain to us what having the ORAD in hand, if that will result in any sort of additional protection for the resource area. I mean, we're already going to be implementing best management practices that include, erosion controls. We've offered to schedule outside of rainfall. We've offered to map through the IVW of the access road to get back to our environmental assessment area in the south of the property. And then just kind of one last thing I'll state is, we're obviously, we want to be, in compliance with the Wetlands Protection Act and the Shutesbury's, wetland bylaw, but we're also operating under the MCP in addressing this RTN that exists at the site. And we have time constraints under that, that jurisdiction as well. And then additionally, we're also trying to, proceed with our investigation and closure of the now removed UIC floor drain that was removed from the garage structure that was at the site, which we know, members of the community are very keen on us, proceeding with that investigation. So we just worry that, this delay, could run the risk of us being out of compliance under the MCP with the existing RTN at the site, and also cause kind of undue delay with the investigation related to the UIC structure. Like I said, I mean, if there, I don't think, if there's a good reason for why, it's going to protect the resource area or cause for increased protection of the resource area. I mean, this work kind of needs to get done. It's only in buffer zone. Environmental investigation of this sort is generally exempt under the Wetlands Protection Act. Really, the filing is more because of the fact that we need to travel through the isolated IVW on the access road, and also because, the buffer zone is jurisdictional under your Shutesbury town bylaw. So,
yeah, Matt, let me respond to that. And I know, Marianne, you have your hand raised, but before we go on to another area, I think I can explain what the dilemma is. So you've delineated 2 resource areas that are in the vicinity of your areas of investigation, an IVW that is near the area of the 3-bay garage that was demolished. And the investigation that you're proposing is in the alleged buffer zone of that IVW. And then you're proposing to do an investigation on the southern part of the property that involves crossing over what you're calling an IVW in the ruts of the road, in the access road. So just for the public and just for clarity, we have 2 pieces of law that define our jurisdiction. One is our Wetlands Protection Act, and one is the bylaw that the town of Shutesbury has passed. And the bylaw has some protections in some areas that it covers that are not covered under the act. If a resource area is only an IVW and it's buffer zone, then it is only jurisdictional and it's at least 1,000 square feet of area. And that's the delimiting factor for what is defined as an IVW under the bylaw. Then the only protection is under the bylaw. If it is a bordering vegetated wetland or a perennial stream or any number of other resource areas, then they're also protected by the Wetlands Protection Act. And it's a difference that is a meaningful difference. For example, and I'm just going to play devil's advocate sort of to play this out, this thought experiment out. But let's say we approved this work, assuming it was an IVW. Well, first, it would mean that because it was only being approved under the bylaw, anybody wishing to appeal this permit could not appeal it to DEP. It could only be appealed to the court because DEP does not entertain appeals from anything that is only jurisdictional under the bylaw. But secondly, if it turned out later through the ANRAD process that it wasn't an IVW, it was actually a bordering vegetated wetland, then we have two conflicting orders issued within a short time period around the same parcel in the same wetland, one defining it as an IVW and one defining it as a BVW. I don't know if that will happen because I don't know what the outcome of the ORAD is going to be. It's premature for us to opine on that, but that's where it becomes problematic, because when I look at the determination of applicability form that we need to fill out, I can't see a good way to fill this out in a way that kind of threads that needle without maybe prematurely providing a ruling that that we're approving a delineation. Because when you issue a determination, you have an attachment with findings, and in the findings we define what the jurisdiction is. So even if we're not approving an ANRAD, we're still defining which wetlands we believe we have jurisdiction over and what law we believe is giving us that jurisdiction. So I don't know how to do that. That's the dilemma. Marianne, you have your hand raised.
Hi, everyone. So I have a lot of concerns about delaying this RDA, beyond tonight's meeting. We've been working on getting to this point for about 3 months. I started working on getting a quote for wetlands delineations on July 19th. And I believe that you can, in your order of conditions, you can write, you don't have to check the box that say you agree with the wetland delineation. And you can state that you're permitting the work, but not making a formal determination about the wetland boundaries or the type of wetlands, but that we all agree that there are wetlands and that we are going to do best practices to protect the wetlands and the buffer zone as we do this work. I have spoken to DEP, and when I speak to DEP about my efforts to get this environmental testing done, they tell me, just allow Fuss and O'Neill to do their work. I've been talking to DEP since before July 19th. And if this is delayed, our best hope is really that the ORAD is confirmed by mid-November. I don't see how it changes the work that we have to do. This work has to be done no matter what the status of the wetlands and the buffer zone are. This work is either ordered by the DEP or required by the DEP. The work at the former radio tower is ordered by the DEP and has to be completed by the middle of January. And we're on a very tight timeline. 3 months is not a lot of time when you're talking about this environmental testing. And then the work around the garage is required by the DEP in order for us to be in compliance with the underground injection control program. It's testing that a lot of townspeople are very concerned about, and it has to be done no matter what the status is. And if there's a way that the ORAD changes the testing or changes the protections for the resource areas as we're doing the testing, we can write that into the RDA tonight. Winter holidays are coming and winter is coming. And while it's not impossible to do this type of work in the wintertime, it's harder to do this type of work in the wintertime. And we risk not being in compliance with DEP and making more work and making this job harder for me and the people I have working with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott, I see you have a comment, and then I'd like to hear perhaps from Janice, who is consults for us and is a wetland scientist and a conservation agent in her own right. And I'd like to get her opinion.
Defer to Janice.
You want to defer to Janice? Janice, we're going to put you on the spot here.
Okay, all right. So Miriam explained the situation this morning to me, and I agree that it is a difficult situation because even if you're not specifically approving the wetland boundaries or designations on the request for determination, on the determination of applicability for the work to be done, it still does establish the town jurisdiction versus the DEP jurisdiction. And you can't go back on that once you've issued the determination. And if the ORAD turns out saying that any of these wetlands that are near the proposed work are protected by DEP as well, then it would require some different kinds of permitting. And I don't know how to do both. Legitimately, the best way would be to wait, to hold onto that RDA until the wetlands have been checked by the peer reviewer, and then everything can be wrapped up together.
Thank you. That was what the guidance from Mary Grover was, as well as from the consultant at MECC that I spoke with. And also the conservation agent, that by issuing a determination of applicability where the only delineation we have available to us is one that we haven't approved, we're locking ourselves into making a decision that would affect future permitting. Scott, did you had your hand raised?
I was just going to say, maybe just as a point of practicality here too, not that we're talking about the specifics of the proposal here, but I do know for many of the permits that we have entertained here before, where folks are crossing wetland areas, that we've, one of the conditions that we've put in place to protect the wetland area, to do it in frozen soil conditions. And Marianne, when you were talking about, not being able to do it, later on here in winter, that'd be more difficult. I just got my attention that, moving forward, maybe as a measure of practicality, one of the conditions that we would likely look at, or that I would propose, is that we would wait until conditions for, soil conditions were frozen, just to limit the impacts of the wetland, provided that, the delineation proved out the way that it did. So maybe that's a long way of saying it seems like the timing might actually work better that way, to get the delineations in place. We get the project in place and can keep it moving forward in a way that safeguards the wetland. But I see there are lots of other hands raised.
So I just want to, I want to move this along, and I would like to just emphasize that, I've been scrutinizing the determination of applicability paperwork today, because I wanted to see if there was a way to work this around, a workaround, to facilitate this in a faster way, honestly. And I can't see a way to fill this out. And we're the ones responsible for filling it out. We can't have the applicants telling us how to fill out the determination of applicability. We have to be independent and make that determination. I simply don't know how to do that. And I was hoping DEP would give me some guidance, and they said they didn't have any recommendations because the town chose to submit an ANRAD and an RDA at the same time. Usually ANRADs are issued, are applied for to assist with the planning for future permits so that the applicants know where the wetland boundaries are before they apply for things. And in this instance, because of the time constraints, the town submitted both of them simultaneously, which has created this dilemma for us. And I understand that there's time constraints, and I appreciate that around and we would like to help the town because we have no intention of trying to stonewall or interfere with, the very important investigations that you're attempting to undertake. So we're stuck, and I don't know how to get unstuck, honestly. I see a bunch of hands raised, and I'd like to give Matt a chance, and then Penny Jakes, and then I see Amanda Alex has her hand raised.
I guess just one thing else I would mention, because you're mentioning a question of jurisdiction, and I mentioned it earlier to you, Miriam, is that under the Wetlands Protection Act, the activities or environmental investigation that we're proposing would be exempt.
Except that a wetlands crossing is not exempt, Matt. I understand that environmental investigations in the buffer zone are considered to be a minor exempt activity under the Wetlands Protection Act. But if you're crossing over a BVW, that's not covered under the minor exempt activities. That would be, you require a permit under the Wetlands Protection Act if you had to, for example, cross through a wetland with heavy equipment in order to access some other activity. That's my understanding. Janice, what's your thought about that? I mean, we don't have the same exemptions in our bylaw. So that's the other.
And we understand it because, that's why we're filing the RDA, right? Because we understand that under the town's bylaw, that is not exempt activity. But I was just kind of pointing to the fact that this sort of environmental investigation generally is an exempt activity under the Wetlands Protection Act. But I do acknowledge that the transiting through the IVW and the access road would not technically fall under that exemption.
Well, if it was the IVW is not protected by the Wetlands Protection Act. But if it's a bordering vegetated wetland, which is up for that's an unanswered question, then that would not be an exempt activity under the Wetlands Protection Act.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
that's really not even the issue, Matt, because the issue is that even let's say it was exempt, it's our finding about where our jurisdiction is. If we base our jurisdiction under the bylaw, that means we issue a determination of applicability that's only under the bylaw, and we put at the top of the determination, this is only under the bylaw, and we can send a copy of it to DEP, but basically we're telling DEP that this is only jurisdictional under those resource areas protected by the bylaw and not the act. And so for future permitting, then that's locked in place for 3 years. That determination that we've already found that this area is not covered by the Wetlands Protection Act, and we can't go back and change that later if the ORAD determines that it's a bordering vegetated wetland, and that's why it's putting the cart before the horse. Because we'd be locking ourselves into a determination that we have to base our determinations on a preponderance of evidence that's credible from competent sources. And it has to be at least 51% credible evidence. And so we've made a determination in the last hearing that we did not have a substantial, and we did not meet that evidence threshold. And that's why we were looking for a third-party review. So to undo that now here is where I feel like our two permitting activities are in conflict with one another. And it seems to me that that's really fraught with some difficulty. Okay, so Penny and Amanda, and then I see Marianne has her hand raised, and then Rita.
Penny Jakes, 43 Old Orchard Road. And I just want to say this whole conversation seems to be lost in the weeds rather than talking about the important things at this point. Fuss and O'Neill have proposed precautions addressing all of the concerns that have been addressed tonight. They're not asking you in this RDA to determine what sort of wetland there is or where they are. They're just asking you to move forward with a very minor project. And I think it's unfortunate that you started this hearing by getting lost in the weeds rather than letting Fuss and O'Neill explain what they're planning to do to all the people who are here listening tonight. As Matt said, this is exempt under the Wetlands Protection Act. The town is required to do this. They have precautions in place for crossing the wetland, whether it's under the bylaw or under the Wetlands Protection Act. This all just seems like a lot of talk and not getting to the bottom of the problem. In your findings, I think there is a way to address this by just saying that the final delineation is being determined through the ORAD, the ANRAD and the ORAD process. And I don't know, this has just been a very frustrating conversation.
Penny, then do we issue it under the act and give the DOA to DEP?
I think you can do that. Just hedge your bets. I think the way that Fuss and O'Neill has presented this, all the precautions they put in there would be accepted to DEP. I think everything they have proposed should be acceptable to the Conservation Commission. You're just, this is all just words. It doesn't really make a difference in the end. It doesn't protect the wetland resource anymore. And I will say the thing that I found that Matt said that is really concerning to me, are you going to require everyone who does a project in under an RDA to do a full delineation under an ANRAD after this? I mean, that's just incredibly onerous. You're setting
Penny, I don't think
precedents.
Penny, I don't
precedent with this.
I don't think that we would ever make that a precedent. I think the circumstance is unique because there is an ANRAD submitted already at the applicant's discretion. And because we are seeking a third party review.
And you do have a wetland delineation. You would never ask for anything more than that from your typical applicant. So I really feel like you're going down a dangerous path here.
Okay. Who was next? I think Amanda and then Marianne and Rita. And actually I see Beth has her hand raised, so I'd like to let the commission respond first, if you don't mind. So Beth, go ahead.
Yeah, just to, I don't know if this helps too much, but the determination, even it's good for 3 years, but it's really only good for the work that's being proposed. So whatever gets approved, once that work is done, that approval of or that determination that that work can be done that close to a wetland is done because the work is done. So the ORAD can still then be done and change a wetland from an IVW to a BVW if that's what happens. It doesn't really affect, I guess, the determination.
And then how would we fill out the determination, Beth? Would we be doing it under the bylaw or under the act or both?
Right now, you'd be doing it under both because the application that's come from Fuss and O'Neill is referring to both an IVW and a BVW. So you would just be submitting a determination according to what we know at this point, and the determination is strictly for that work. And then the ORAD can change things, but it doesn't matter because the work's going to be done.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a point that I wanted to.
Okay.
If that clarifies anything.
All right, Amanda.
Hi, Amanda Alex, 16 Lakeview Road. Excuse me. I just want to speak to the timelines issue a little bit. I just want to point out that last year, the LSPs that we used, O'Reilly, Talbot, and Oaken, who did the testing that wound up with the B9 positive for VOC, RTN we now have to deal with, they managed to get a full report into the town within a month of walking the site with town officials. So they got a full report in by October 5th of 2021, and the town still didn't even report the results to DEP until the last day, which was, I think, January 28th of this year. So I'm sure that Fuss and O'Neill can manage to get things done as efficiently as OTO did. And if it's not going to be reported until the last day anyway, what difference does it make? Which I would assume it would be. Also, as far as the underground injection well goes, actually that should have been done correctly over a year ago. That's why we're here today, because it wasn't. So I think a bunch of people, including myself, that are concerned about that would rather it be done correctly. It's, I assume, going to be more difficult now with all the disturbances going on at the site. And I, for one, don't want to see it rushed through. I would just as soon have it done, you know, according to DEP and the Fuss and O'Neill's, you know, strategies. I just wanted to mention that. I also like the idea, and I looked it up a little bit myself, about doing some of this work when the ground is partially frozen. From what I've read, that would cause less trauma to the wetlands in the resource areas. So that's my vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Who's next? Rita, were you next?
I think Mary Ann is, and then I'll go.
I defer to Rita.
Oh, okay. So I just wanted to make a couple of points. The first is, at the last meeting, we had agreed that this was the way we were going to proceed with doing the NRAD and doing the RDA. And so to hear tonight that the RDA is going to be deferred and to wait on the NRAD is problematic to me. I don't know why the recommendation was made, and it's being presented tonight as if this is kind of news, but this is what was agreed upon at the last meeting, and this is what we've done, and this is what our engineers have presented at the recommendation or agreement of the Conservation Commission. I think the other point I just want to reinforce is that what we are talking about doing is doing soil samples where the underground injection pump or whatever it is, doing some test holes there, and then getting to B9, which is not in a wetlands, but having to cross a wetlands so that we can fulfill our obligation to report back to DEP by the middle of January. I think Mary Ann reinforced, you know, we are up against, and Matt mentioned, we are up against a timeline. So by pushing this all forward or pushing it out, the town is then in jeopardy of not meeting the DEP guidelines. And that's a real problem.
Okay.
I think the RDA is very straightforward. We're doing some soil samples, we're doing a test boring back at B9, end of story. It is minimal disruption to the wetlands, and we're crossing a wetlands, and I believe arrangements can be made, and our engineers have, again, laid out that we are not going to be doing any kind of major disruption.
Okay, thank you. Matt, and then I see Mike Vinsky has his hand raised. And then I would like to take a pause and confer with the commission about how we want to proceed and whether we feel like we can go forward tonight with the remainder of this hearing or what we need to do. So I think we we've kind of reviewed the issues, and I think we need to make a decision. But, I want to hear from the public, and Matt, I'd like to give you a chance to talk.
Just to build on what Rita said quickly, the UIC investigation that we're going to be doing are small test pits down to a couple, 2 to 3 feet in depth, and all within previously disturbed area within the IVW buffer area. So, we've proposed to line the entire work area with straw wattle. We've proposed to stockpile immediately adjacent to the holes, the removed soil, replace in kind, same day, to loam and seed, and leave it at grade, kind of in the way that we've found it. And then in the back, as Rita said, our investigation is going to happen outside of resource area or buffer zone as we've mapped it in our wetland delineation. So it's really just the crossing of that isolated IVW, which now is an active access road that appears that people have driven back and forth on frequently. But we've offered to mat across that with our small track mounted equipment that'll be doing the soil investigation, kind of out of an abundance of caution. Even though there's kind of rutting at the same width that our tracks will be moving through, we still want to mat just to kind of be overly cautious about that IVW. So just kind of wanted to build a little bit upon, I think we got into some other discussion before I was able to kind of lay out really what the approach is. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of what the scope of work would look like. And both events would probably happen on different days, but both take about a day each. So any disturbance would not be left, overnight or anything like that. We would remove soils, replace them in kind, loam and seed, and then leave our erosion control in place until vegetation had taken hold again in those disturbed areas.
Okay, thank you. Mike Vinsky, you want to speak?
Yeah, thank you. Mike Vinsky, 391 West Pelham Road. I'd just like to pass on that I'm very much in favor of getting the wetlands delineated first before any additional work or consideration is done for the rest of the testing. It's a little concerning to me that we're in this situation now because things have been done incorrectly or not completely. And I'm concerned that the welfare of the majority of residents is being overlooked, except by the Conservation Commission, which I greatly thank for taking or having the fortitude to make sure that we're going to do these activities correctly and in the correct order and everything. I'm not convinced that the time constraint is realistic. There's been some talk about how quickly the work can be done once it's authorized, and I feel that is not it's not an aspect of this that really needs to be considered. So I'd like to see the wetlands delineated, and then we move on from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more other comments or questions from members of the public before we kind of move into discussion? Penny, I know I'll call on you in a second, but I just want to give anybody else who wants to raise their hand, who hasn't had a chance to speak, an opportunity first. Is there anyone? I don't see any hands raised. Okay. All right, Penny, go ahead.
I just want to say in response to Mr. Vinsky's comments that the wetlands have been delineated. There may be some minor adjustments based on the peer review, but to state that you want to wait until you do this, until after the wetlands have been delineated, is not an accurate comment.
Okay, well, everybody's entitled to their own point of view, so I don't want to get into name calling or being disrespectful at the meeting tonight. I understand that we all have our own perspectives. we may not agree on things, but let's try to be respectful. I see Don Wakaluk has his hand raised and Mary Lou Conca.
Hi. Hi, Commission. Been a
Don
while since I
first.
spoke to you guys.
Sorry.
The driveway area is disturbed soils. There are wetlands on the DEP wetland layer that end on the driveway. There is a mysterious disappearance of wetlands on the site. And it could be that those wetlands are attached to wetlands across the street, much like they are east and west of the site.
Mhm.
I think that you need to have a wetland delineation and it has to be reviewed. If you proceed with an RDA, doesn't matter whether or not you're approving a delineation or not. What it's saying is that the RDA is talking about the area of applicability for where jurisdiction is. And jurisdiction may exceed the current delineation that exists right now. I think you need that reviewer's comments in order to say anything with any kind of clarity. Thank you.
I mean, one issue that we haven't discussed is that, and again, these are hypotheticals, and you know, if we were to issue an RDA, and then pending the, you know, again, one of the arguments that I've heard is this a difference that isn't a difference? Is this trivial? Is this just mincing words or being picayune, and we're being, we're focusing on details that aren't meaningful? But for example, if there was a resource area and this work, let's say the work, it was discovered that the work was being done in a resource area where an NOI would be required, then we would issue a positive determination with the RDA and require a notice of intent. So by issuing a determination before we know what the resource areas are, we're kind of precluding those kind of findings. So Mary Lou?
Hi, Mary Lou Conca, 105 Wendell Road. And I just wanted to say that I support Michael Vinsky's thoughtful input to this evening's conversation. Thank you.
Okay, Marianne, and then I would like to have some conversation among the commissioners, just so we can decide how best to use our time. I would say, you know, let's not just keep restating positions. If you have something new to offer, please share it. But otherwise, I'd like to confer with the commission for a few moments. So go ahead, Marianne.
Okay, thank you. So I would just like to point out that the front of the parcel close to Leverett Road, up, you know, about up to the tree line, that the wetlands have been delineated there 3 times over the past 12 or so years. And while they do show some differences, they're not remarkably different. So the, you know, so the findings that we have found so far are, you know, so we delineated further back because we did the entire parcel because we had to get to B9. But I don't believe we're gonna, that when you've had 3 wetland delineations that are all very similar over 12 years, that we're going to see a remarkably different thing that would then remarkably change the difference in what we need to do. And we, and if you wanted to delay something, if, you know, I could see, I mean, I really want to be able to just get this work done and get this off my plate, because it's really interfering with my ability to do my other library director jobs. But the testing at B9 is critical. We have 3 months with winter holidays in the midst of it. And then I really don't agree that that we're going to see a big difference up around where the garage was when we've had 3 wetland delineations that are all fairly similar. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, Matt, do you have a comment? And I'd like to then close the public comment for a few moments at least, so the commission can talk.
Yeah, again, I worry about the use of kind of hypotheticals in an RDA circumstance and what that would mean to any other RDA that's filed in front of the commission. To say that hypothetically, it could be, what if it is in a BBW, but part of the RDA is, you guys making kind of a determination. I guess my question is, if we were submitting this RDA without a concurrent ANRAD, right, you would likely come out, do a site walk, see that the two locations where the investigation's occurring are clearly not in wetland resource area. Obviously they're in buffer, but just from an untrained eye, I think it's pretty clear that the two environmental investigation areas themselves are not within resource area. And we're acknowledging that we are tracking through a resource area, but also implementing BMPs for that purpose. I just, there's always going to be a hypothetical on any RDA that's filed about, well, maybe it is a BBW, or maybe it's, something else, or riverfront, but part of that is making that informed determination based off of your abilities to, what you think is the likely scenario.
So Matt, all I can say in response to that is that sometimes we talk about hypotheticals in order to understand what the consequences are of our deliberations and different decisions that we would make. So, and we have to be basing our final determinations on the evidence that's before us. But in this circumstance, we do have an ANRAD before us. So this is not a common situation. And the dilemma is created by the fact that the applicants have submitted an ANRAD and an RDA simultaneously. And we're discussing the conflict created by that. I also just want to point out that while there have been a number of other delineations, there's also been comments made to this commission in the last few meetings. Back in July, there was comments made by the town calling into question a determination of applicability that we issued in July of 2021. The town administrator told the commission that she did not believe that we had jurisdiction in the area of the 3-bay garage, even though it wasn't appealed, and we did issue a determination of applicability, and that work was permitted. So there has been debate about where wetlands are, and the town administrator shared that night that she had multiple wetland delineations that were in conflict with one another, and she raised questions about our ability to recognize the wetland delineation. So all of this is to say that this is not simple in this particular case. And I don't think this is sets a precedent for local applicants in other situations. I think this is a very unique situation, both because it's the town and because of the fact that there's been these prior debates about the accuracy of other wetland delineations. And I think that's why we're wanting to do the third-party review, because we have heard conflicting reports about where the wetlands are, and we're taking that seriously. Commissioners, should we be proceeding?
So I just, I may have waffled on my opinion on this, listening to it. I mean, this is work that needs to be done. I'm not quite convinced that we couldn't issue the RDA with that exception written in that we have all agreed that the delineation hasn't been done now. I don't think, I think any of the work, even if the delineation changed, the work that they're asking to do and the precautions they're taking would be met. So I guess my question still is, why couldn't we specifically write on the RDA that this is approved based on not approving the delineation, and that the work done is done in the manner that it needs to be, and that, the further delineation will be determined by the ANRAD.
If we can do that, and what I'd like to do is kind of go over the DOA form pretty carefully before we make a final decision, because once we close the public meeting, then, we can't continue it. We have to issue a permit within 21 days. So we should be really clear whether or not we feel like we can do this before we close this public meeting.
Mhm.
And so it seems to me like if we were going to do this, that we would be doing it, even though they only applied under the bylaw, that we would, and we would say, no, this is work under both the act and the bylaw, because part of the 3-bay garage, even by their own wetlands delineation map, is in the buffer zone of a BVW, which means it's that would be, if assuming that delineation is correct, it would be jurisdictional under the act. So that part of their application, I think, was incorrect. But I don't think that bars us from issuing a DOA, does it? If they didn't apply correctly?
No, you can still change that kind of thing in the determination.
So that would be my thought, is to issue it under the act, assuming that it is jurisdictional, until shown otherwise.
Yeah, you would, again, I would think the determination would be both under the act and under the bylaw. And I agree that we can do it. And I agree that I feel like the BMPs all are protective of the wetlands that have been identified by this point. So I think, if people feel the rest of the commission feels comfortable with that kind of thing, really more, do we feel like what they're proposing is going to protect the wetlands that have been identified at this point? I guess technically I don't feel like we can't issue a determination, and I don't think it sets a precedent at all for, what's going to happen at this site going into the future.
Okay. All right.
Scott has his hand up, I think.
You've got your hand. Yep.
Yeah, I was going to say, I like the point that Beth had raised earlier too, that, this would be specific to this particular project, to the investigation, and that it could be changed later. And I think that was an excellent point. And, so I don't feel like we're being hemmed in, or that it would be problematic afterwards if we could issue it here now. And I like the idea of issuing it under the act. I also appreciate Matt's point about placing a landing mat on there to safeguard the wetland. I think that's an important point, and that mitigates the concerns that I have about soil compaction or other impacts to the wetland. Typically that would be done during frozen soil condition if the mat is being placed. So I appreciate that as well.
Okay. Well, I'm a flexible person, and I'm willing to be persuaded, and I'm persuaded that we can move forward. So what I'd like to do before we close the public hearing, I do want to go over the form to make sure that we're not in a dilemma, but I also kind of want to step back a second and ask, I have a couple questions, and see if the public has any questions that they would like to ask Fuss and O'Neill or the town about these projects, because I understand that there is a lot of interest about these projects. We don't have the jurisdiction to dictate to the town how they test. And I want to make that really clear, that, for example, if they say we only want to do 4 test pits, we don't really have the jurisdiction to say, no, we think you need to do 5. It would be similar to if somebody came before us and said, I want to dig a 200-foot well. We don't really have the jurisdiction to say, oh, no, I think you need a 300-foot well. I mean, that's really, the wetland impacts are the same. We don't really have justification to dictate how people do their projects unless it affects the wetlands. However, I just want to be mindful that this is a public meeting and there are members of the public here. So if there are questions that anybody would like to ask for a few minutes, I'm willing to entertain a few questions to the applicants if people have them.
Do we want to step back and have Matt sort of present the project and show a plan and show where things are going to?
We can do that. So Matt, why don't you screen share the site plan and take a couple minutes to present it. And then, I'd like to see if there's any questions from the public or comments, and then I think we should get into the meat of grinding out this permit.
Give me a second here to get my screen up. Can everybody see my screen? Should be seeing a site figure. Does everybody see it?
Yes.
Okay. So there's two pieces here that we're working on. I'll start back here with the B9 environmental investigation. So this is related to an existing RTN at the site. There was some phase 2 environmental assessment done by OTO back in the winter of 2021. They found a reportable condition back here at location B9, reported the release. So this is follow-up delineatory work back here to further investigate that under the MCP. The way that this works is once the RTN is issued, we have 360 days or a year, or 365 days or a year to either retract the RTN or to tier classify the site. So that's what's driving this investigation back here. Again, under our delineation, there's no mapped resource area in the vicinity of this investigation area. It was adjacent to what used to be an old radio tower associated with the Westover base that is now no longer there. So the only way that we can access that location, and we have taken a look at some other alternatives to see if we could avoid this IVW, but is to use the existing access road that is located at the site, which you can see outlined in white here. There was some, I believe, wetland indicative species that were found in this IVW here, kind of in the center portion of the access road in between the kind of tire tracked areas of the access road. In order to do our investigation, we need to place soil borings into the ground. This can be done with a number of different sorts of devices. We chose what we felt would be the least impactful, which is a track mounted geoprobe. It's remote controlled, size of, kind of a tractor. And again, it's track mounted. It kind of displaces the weight evenly. It's not a very large machine, smaller than most cars. And again, we're going to map through the IVW as we move through. The machinery will go back out the same day. We'll map back out, and then we'll observe once we've pulled up the matting to make sure that there was no damage kind of done to the underlying material. The second part of this investigation is related to a retroactive permitting and closure of a floor drain that was located in the now demolished 3-bay garage that was located at the site. We've been in correspondence with the DEP and their UIC point person numerous times throughout our planning process, and are in close contact with them kind of every step of the way. But what this is likely going to look like is a collection of 4 to potentially 8 small test pits to observe subsurface soil conditions and then collect representative samples in support of a retroactive permit and closure of that floor drain. I was referring to before as underground injection control point. Under the purview of the DEP, that's what they classify a floor drain in a garage of this type. So that's going to be our investigation there. Again, we'll be placing straw wattle around the vicinity of our work area. We'll be staging the spoils from each test pit immediately adjacent to the excavation. Immediately following that and sampling, the soils will be replaced in kind back into the excavation. Again, and then all of the test pits will be loamed and seeded at the end of the work. And then, like I said, we will leave the erosion control in place, to ensure that, there's no runoff into any of the resource areas from the disturbed areas within the buffer zone. And then additionally, I believe we've provided another BMP in there that will do that work in a dry period, or at least a dry day, so that we're not running the risk of having soft or saturated soils, and kind of limit the disturbance to our work.
Okay. Thank you. Did anything else?
Sorry, go ahead.
So I had a question, and I see Rita has her hand raised, but Rita, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just, Matt, you're using some terminology that I think a lot of people here are not familiar with. So RTN and the other one was M. So if you could just briefly explain what those are.
Yeah. I apologize. So an RTN is a release tracking number, and that's how the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection tracks sites that have had reportable releases. So once a reportable release is called into the DEP, it's assigned an RTN, or a release tracking number. And that's a way for, the entity, their consultants, and the public to track the process of that site through the MCP, which is the Massachusetts Contingency Plan, which is what that site now has to operate under the regulations and guidance of the MCP as it progresses through to either retraction or closure of that condition. Sorry about I always joke that we have so many acronyms that they no longer become useful, but that is the world of environmental regulations, it seems.
Thank you. So I had a question with the 3-bay garage area where you're proposing to do the test pits. And the question two questions I had is, how are you going to determine, or how did you determine the depth to be 3 to 4 feet based on what data? And how are you going to determine how to advance from 2 to, you say it will advance from 2 to 8 test pits. So the question was, how you make those decisions based on what criteria? And then the third question, I guess, was, given that previous investigations have determined that there is high groundwater in that area, if you encounter high groundwater, how would that affect your compositing the samples?
So the depths and locations of the investigation, were determined in conjunction with the discussion with the DEP, or Joe Cerruti with the DEP, who heads up their UIC program. So generally what they mandate is that, when investigating, you would dig down to the interface between disturbed and native soils, and take a sample from that interface, with the thinking that if there was any sort of discharge into the subsurface from one of these elements, your highest, or most, not severe, most pronounced impact would be in the soils closest to the structure itself. So by sampling from those soils, which would be at the bottom of the disturbed and native soil interface, native meaning that it's, has not been disturbed, you would be capturing what would be the worst if there had been some sort of release from that structure. Again, so before this investigation can even occur, right, there's a submittal that's going to go into the DEP, and it'll have to be approved by them, our scope of work. So this is not, something that we're coming up with and dictating that it's it's exactly what's going to happen. But we have been in discussion with Joe to make sure that what we're proposing is something that's going to be agreeable to the DEP, but they will ultimately review and approve our plan. And then we will have to submit a closure report to them detailing our findings that then they will have to accept as well. So there's multiple steps here. It's not just us, coming up with whatever we think is, that's good enough sort of thing. Like, this has to go through the DEP. They have to approve it on both ends of the work, and may even be in person during the investigation. So I hope that answered the question a little bit, but
I just one follow-up question, and I know that there's some other people who have their hands raised, but have you ever done this kind of an investigation after the fact when an injection well had already been removed and filled?
It doesn't generally come up, and generally, I would say in most cases, it's probably because nobody ever, knows. I'm not trying to say that, I think generally, if people demolish their garage behind their home, they generally probably don't even know that there's a UIC permitting process. So this is kind of a unique case, and that is why we've proposed to do the test pits rather than soil borings, because there is, while we think we have a pretty good idea or a pretty accurate idea of where that floor drain was, we're going to be doing test pits that are kind of stepping out in every direction from that proposed location so that we can capture, if it was 2 feet to the side, that's going to be captured in one of our test pits. If we knew, if it was something that we knew to, within an inch of where it was, we would likely just go and do one soil boring right at that location and be done with it. But we've chosen to go with a kind of larger investigatory area through the test pitting to make sure that we're capturing, where that source was, or where that underground injection control point was.
Okay, thank you. All right, I see some hands raised, and I know Jill Marland had her hand raised. Can we stop the screen share maybe? So I can see people. Okay, thanks. Can you stop the screen? I can't stop it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Okay, so Jill, and then I didn't see the order, hands got raised, so maybe Dawn, Amanda, and then Diane.
Hi,
And
good
then-
evening. Good evening. Thanks. I wonder if I can get some clarification between what is the relationship between this floor drain and this drain pipe, which I believe, if my understanding is correct, was removed prior to the takedown of the garage. I just don't understand what the relationship of the drain pipe is, how long it was, what the terminus was, and the purpose of it, and should testing include, the terminus site of where the drain pipe had ended or along that path.
Correct. So there was a drain pipe that led out to, I believe, I'm orienting myself correctly, to the east of the exterior of the old 3-bay garage. There's actually a figure from a 2012 environmental investigation that was done by Cold Spring Consultants, which has an aerial view, and they actually investigated soils right at the end of that drainage point. So we have a figure, an aerial figure, and we know exactly where that drainage point ended based off of the Cold Spring Consultants environmental investigation from 2012. So there's going to be a test pit that's also done in that area. And there was previous soil borings done by Cold Spring and OTO in that vicinity that returned results of non-detect across the board. But there's specific range of parameters that need to be tested under the UIC permitting and closure program, and that's how we're going to be proceeding with this investigation. But we are aware of that, outfall or drainage pipe that extended from the floor drain outside of the footprint of the building, and our investigation is going to encapsulate where that drainage point was. So we'll be having a test pit at that location as well.
And can you just clarify, I know this sounds obvious, but what was the purpose of that drain pipe?
It was just to drain the floor drain inside of the 3-bay garage. I'm not acutely aware of what, it was being used for, other than just drainage of any sort of, fluid from inside of the building. So that was it. It just conveyed whatever was draining through the floor drain to the outside of the building.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to move things along. So, I'm going to allow 3 more comments, and then I would like to end the public comment period and move to working with the commission to wrap this up. We have other things we have to take care of tonight. So I'm just looking at the time. We've been going for over an hour. So go ahead, Dawn and Amanda and Diane.
I just wanted to ask Matt exactly what the range of contaminants that they were going to be looking for was. All I've seen is a mention of PCBs from the rear of the site from B9. I would think that from a floor drain, from an automotive garage, we'd be looking for perchloroethylene. We'd be looking for some other contaminants in the soil there, and what you and how you would expect to find those types of chemicals by digging with a backhoe.
Well, so the digging with the backhoe is just to expose the soils, right? And then there'll be a process of logging lithology of the soils, screening with a handheld meter that looks for TVOCs or volatile organic compounds. Then samples will be submitted to an analytical laboratory and run for a suite of analytical parameters, which will include petroleum compounds. I believe there's a target list of metals. It's not exactly the RCRA 8 metals, it's a subset of that. So it's the DEP has designed a list that looks for those compounds that you would commonly expect in an automotive type setting. So there's, a very defined list with the DEP's knowledge that it was used as an automotive garage. So we'll be looking for petroleum constituents, assorted metals, like I said. I don't know if PCBs are required under the UIC, but we are proposing to test for that just because there was a history at the site that, we've seen in some of the historical reporting. So that'll be included as well. So yeah, I mean, we're just, this is a pretty prescribed thing, whereas the RTN investigation is really up to the purview of the LSP. This is something that's very explicitly dictated by the DEP, how the investigation should be done, what should be sampled, and how we need to, permit it and then close it. So, like I said, we've already had a couple of calls with Joe Cerruti over at the DEP, and we plan to, have future correspondence throughout the investigation to make sure that we're covering all of our bases here.
Thank you.
Okay, and I see Amanda and then Diane.
Thank you. Okay, I have a few concerns about whether the proposed testing at the former three-car garage site is going to be adequate based on some information I got from the town, which I'd like to share. I requested the dates, the invoices for the dates the mini excavator was used to take down the garage, which according to Tim Hunting's affidavit was August 11th, 12th, and 16th. What I was sent was an invoice for the August 30th through September the 2nd, which means to me that there were multiple cleanup activities at this site, not just when they took down the garage. Invoices from Waste Management show 4 full dumpsters in total, with the last one brought to the landfill on September 7th, 2021. I added up the tonnage and it was over 47 tons worth of stuff. And that doesn't even include the concrete garage floor, which according to Tim Hunting was loaded into trucks and taken God knows where. So how, I wonder, does anybody generate that much waste without excavating? Also, when I asked for the invoice for the loan that the town administrator said was trucked in to fill in the site after the demo, I was told there were no records responsive to this. So there's no way to know how much loan was put in there. Truckloads, I guess, I don't know. How do we know? Does Matt Cassane know? Does anybody know? How far are you going to go down? I'm not sure how you're supposed to know this stuff. So also that mysterious 30-foot drain pipe, which was there in 2012, disappeared somehow, according to a neighbor. It disappeared before the demolition of the garage. Who saw this happen? Was it leaking? Where did it go? Was the sludge inside tested? Isn't that the law? I mean, are they going to do any test pits along there? That seems outrageous to me. It seems to me that there needs to be a lot more testing done there than what F&O is doing. And maybe they're not aware of some of this stuff. I don't know. But it seems to me DEP needs to oversee this. So that's my 2 cents for it. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Diane, and then Jill, I see you have your hand raised, but I was really kind of wanting to close the public comment unless there's something you absolutely need to ask. That could be very brief. And
No,
then
I forgot to take my hand down.
great. So Diane, and then we're going to close public comment.
Thank you, Miriam. Diane Jacoby, 230 Lever Road. I just have one question, and I think it's for Matt. I keep reading about the underground injection drain and how that needs to be closed. And I'm just wondering, what does that involve? What does that look like?
So what's actually being done is kind of a retroactive permitting and closure, that it's been closed, it's been removed from the site. But what's been brought to light and what's now we're actively doing is there's a process that should have been employed previously where that was permitted, an application for closure was submitted, and then a closure report was submitted. So in this instance, the only kind of path forward, and again, this is in conjunction with the DEP, is to do a retroactive permitting of the structure. And there's a way to indicate on our permit that it doesn't exist anymore. We lay out a very detailed sampling protocol to the DEP. They review it, give us permission to proceed with closure. The closure in this case is going to be our environmental investigation to ensure that when it was removed or when it was operating as a UIC or a floor drain, that there was no release of any sort of harmful contaminants to the subsurface. So closure is the term that the DEP uses for it, but it's we're talking about something that is no longer there. So I guess that it gets a little confusing in that regard, but that is still the language that we're using or that the DEP uses
So
for it.
it sounds to me like the process that you're going to go through is going to make sure that the mess that this drain was carrying away is no longer at the site.
Yeah, or and to investigate, if there is any mess, right? I mean, there's the potential that even if the floor drain, there's a lot of instances where floor drains, discharge to the soils or the subsurface, and there's no sort of impacts to the environment. But what we're doing is to ensure that that's the case, right? So we're not only investigating where the floor drain was itself, and to speak back to, I believe, Amanda's point, we're also proposing a couple of test pits along the length of that outfall pipe to make sure that, if there was a break, because it's gone now, we don't know what the structural integrity of that pipe was. So we will be investigating along the length of it all the way to the discharge point to capture if there was anything that had occurred between either the point source or its outfall. We'll be able to see that in our test pits. And then just kind of going back to Amanda's point quick, I mean, we do soil investigations all the time as part of our due diligence work, across numerous sites. And, we have, I'm a geologist, went to school for 6 years of it. We have a pretty good idea of where the differences between native soils and disturbed soils. And we can see that in our excavation cuts and the sidewall cuts. We're able to determine where that interface is by differences in layering or sorting of soils and things like that. So, we can do that with high confidence. So like I said, I mean, we're, in this instance, it is going to be fully reviewed by the DEP. So, and we won't proceed until that approval is received.
Matt, I'm just gonna cut you off because I think we're at a place where we want to give you what you want, but my brain is going to shut off and then you're not going to get it. so let's just move this along and do what we need to do. Is that okay? Is everybody all right with that, please?
Yes.
Because we have more work we have to do than just this permit. All right, I am going to screen share the determination form, and let's walk through it. I've been drafting it while we've been in here. And I think it's showing up. Can you guys see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you make it bigger?
I can try. How's that?
Okay, great,
And
thank
I
you.
cannot, I won't be able to see if anybody has their hands raised because I've reduced that window. So let me know if someone's got their hand raised. So I've got the site plans here. This was requested, the revised revision was 10.5. The proposed project involves environmental investigations in 2 areas of the subject parcel, lot 032. Soil borings will be obtained on a southern area of the property accessed by the existing dirt access road. The investigation will consist of installing temporary wetland mats along the access road prior to mobilization or to reach the area with a drilling rig. Geoprobe direct push method to be used to a maximum depth of up to 15 feet below grade or refusal for up to 8 locations. Upon completion of work, soil borings will be backfilled to grade and temporary mats will be removed. Up to 8 test pits will be advanced within the area of the demolished garage to conduct investigations under the underground injection control well program. A backhoe or excavator will be used to excavate test pits to a depth of 3 to 4 feet. Soil conditions will be evaluated and test pits will be backfilled to grade, seeded with a native grass seed mix and mulched with straw. Now for the determinations. This is what I've got as a draft. So under determinations, we're not going to be issuing a positive determination. So I'm treating this like other RDAs where we were issuing it under both the bylaw and the act. So number 5 is checked off. Janice, are you still there with us?
Yep, I'm trying to go through it at the same time.
I don't want to lose you.
So this is, you're doing one form for both. Is that what you're
One
doing?
form for both.
Okay.
Okay. And then the following area, if any, is subject to a municipal, I think I'm taking this out, actually. I'm taking that off. And then under negative determination, this is not looking like the draft I had that I was working on. Oops, you know what? This is not the draft I was working on. Excuse me, let me find it again. Darn, had it all worked out. Give me one sec. There's too many changes there. All right, well, maybe I lost it. So what I was going to do to go back to this under the positive determination, wondering whether I should say here under 2B that we're not approving the wetland delineation.
Yes, I think
How's
so.
that? What should
Yeah,
I
I
say?
think that's what we said. Mhm.
Should I name the individual wetlands? This determination does not approve the boundaries. The boundaries of the
Getting too late.
BVW 3, BVW 1, IVW 2, and IVW 4.
Do you need to actually be specific or can you just put it doesn't approve the
as
boundaries?
mapped on the RDA site plan noted above. Do you think so, Janice?
Yeah, are you leaving out other ones that are
No,
on the plan?
I think those are the only 4 that there were. Is that right, Matt? I believe that was there.
Yeah, that's correct. We have BVW 1, BVW 3, IVW 4, IVW 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So then I'll just say it again. We're going to say it again. Approval of wetland boundaries is deferred to the applicant's pending ANRAD application. How's that?
Okay.
Janice, is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, then the work is subject to the bylaw. The work is subject to the act, so we're going down to a negative number. Where is negative number 2? Negative number 3. And then say see attached special conditions. This determination is issued under the jurisdiction of the WPA and the Shutesbury wetlands bylaw, wetlands protection bylaw. Shutesbury general. Okay, is that all right?
Okay.
Okay, so that would be it. And then this is the wrong date. Tomorrow is the 14th. And then I'll go to get everybody's signature. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, saving that. Stopping the screen share. Does that work?
Yes.
You feel like, okay. All right, now I'm going to pull up the special conditions, which I have been writing while facilitating this meeting. I just would like to say that I was doing. And anybody can buy me candy. if they want. Or chocolate, flowers, whatever you want. All right. Can you see it? I'm not seeing it. I'm having trouble. I have too many things open. Are you
Very
guys seeing?
fuzzy, very fuzzy.
All right, let me see if I can find it. Okay. Are you seeing it here?
Yep.
All right, this was my stab at it as we're talking, because I wasn't prepared for this tonight. So I'm just going to read it. Findings of fact. The applicant proposes to conduct 2 subsurface investigations as part of a larger environmental assessment. Test pits are planned to be dug near the location of the demolished 3-bay garage as part of the town's effort to bring the site into compliance with the underground injection control well closure regulations. In addition, the applicants propose bringing a drilling rig to a southern area of the property that has been the subject of a release notification form filed with the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection on January 28th. The rig will be moved across a dirt access road with mats laid down to protect wetland areas. Work permitting under this determination of applicability shall conform to the following plans and documents submitted on October 5th. So there are 2 site plans, the delineation report, and the narrative. The commission finds that the work proposed falls within protected resource areas and their buffer zones as defined by the Wetlands Protection Act, the Rivers Protection Act, the Wetlands Protection Act regulations, and the Shutesbury General Wetlands Protection Bylaw and bylaw regulations. How's that?
Good.
The commission does not approve the wetland delineations presented in this request for determination of applicability at this time due to a pending abbreviated notice of resource area delineation application. The commission finds there is a preponderance of credible evidence from competent sources to determine that the project areas are in protected resource areas, although the delineations of those resource areas have yet to be approved.
Good.
Is that going to work for the applicants? Applicants?
Yeah, I think so. Unless Marianne or Rita, if you guys have a different opinion.
I will defer to you, Matt.
Okay. The applicant has proposed that the work will occur within the 100-foot buffer zone of an isolated wetland on the property and involves crossing another isolated vegetated wetland located within the footprint of the access road. The isolated vegetated wetland resource area was previously previously delineated by April Dorosky of Fuss and O'Neill and is described in the 2 September wetland delineation.
So would that be R described?
and R. Okay. So I'm saying they're proposing it. I'm not saying that we agree. Is that clear?
Yes.
The 100 buffer zone is a protected resource area under the bylaw. Isolated wetlands are protected resource areas under the bylaw if they are over 1,000 square feet in area. The Conservation Commission finds that the proposed project will have no negative impact on protectable resource areas listed above with the following conditions. And then this is mostly boilerplate, but there's a couple of decision points. So
Wait, Miriam, do we want to say up above that the work is also within buffer zone to BVW that's regulated under the Wetlands Protection Act?
well, I don't say that. I just mentioned this as just a statement of fact.
Okay.
Saying which buffer zone. I could say any, how's this? Any 100 buffer zone to a, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I think Beth is saying that there is some legitimate DEP 100-foot buffer zone.
Yes.
There is.
Okay, so a portion of this work is also within the mapped 100-foot buffer zone of a bordering vegetated wetland per the applicant's site plan.
Regulated by Wetlands Protection Act.
Site plan, this resource area is regulated under the Wetlands Protection Act, and it's regulated. Okay. As well as the bylaw. Shoots very general. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
All right. Okay.
What was the beginning of number 6 then? You had deleted some stuff. So there's something.
The buffer zone. I don't know.
Oh,
if
okay.
this was just a statement, or I could really say any 100-foot buffer zone to. Why don't, well, let's say, let me put it this way. The Shutesbury treats protects isolated wetlands as protected resource if they are over 100, the 100-foot buffer zone to protected resource areas is treated as a protected resource area under the bylaw. How's that?
Good.
Good enough? All right. So site visits, we can investigate, we can enter the property. This document will be included in any contracts with anybody else doing the work, along with this, that are created after the issuance, along with a statement that this determination shall supersede any contractual arrangements. They'll provide a copy of this determination to anyone doing the work. Anyone doing the work is responsible for complying. If there's any changes in the plans, they have to come back to us with an application. They'll provide a copy of these conditions to anyone supervising the work. Everyone's individually responsible. Is this redundant? Have I got two conditions here that are the same? Individually responsible. Yes, this is repetitive. Is that right? Can you help me, guys? This document is included in references. Anyone doing the work is individually responsible. Anybody supervising the work and then if you change the plan, you've got to come back to us. I don't think this is redundant.
Okay.
Right? Provide a copy to anybody supervising the work. Yes, that one's,
okay.
sorry, I was cutting and pasting here. Erosion control should be installed per the application prior to the start of any other work authorized under this determination around the project area. No hay shall be used for erosion controls. Once erosion controls are in place, they shall submit photographs to us in lieu of a pre-construction site visit. Erosion controls should define the limit of work. No major changes will be made to the pre-existing grade, nor are any tree removals approved. Pre-existing vegetation will be preserved to the maximum amount possible. Now, we had a discussion about whether there was any way to save the mountain laurels that are on the access road from the rig.
They'll grow back.
Okay. If any change, this is redundant. Okay, you have to excuse me, everybody. I did this in a hurry. If any change, so this one can be removed. Construction materials will be stockpiled in areas that are protected by erosion controls and as far from the protected resource areas as is practical. Any unconsolidated materials will remain under double tarps. No material of any kind can be buried, displaced, or dispersed in any areas under the jurisdiction of the commission. And then they've already said they're going to use native grass seed, so I don't know if we have to say that again. Take this out.
Yeah.
And they'll submit photographic documentation of the site within 30 days of the completion of the project.
Did you want something about the commission receiving any results that are, appropriate sort of public level results or something like that?
Yes, I like that.
I was going to say that too. Yeah.
I like that. We had talked informally about that. So how would you like to word this? Upon the completion of the environmental investigations on this property, the applicants shall share the resulting reports with the commission within 30 days of their completion, of their receipt by the town. How's that?
Good.
Okay. Anything else we need to have in here?
I think that
No.
covers it.
Okay. All right. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing, the public meeting?
I'll make a motion to close the public meeting.
Second,
Second.
David,
Aye.
DeFont, aye. Harrington,
You're muted.
I can't unmute. Okay, there we go.
aye. Is that an aye, Robin?
Aye.
Okay, and Con,
Aye.
Wilson?
Aye.
Okay, somebody, do I have the permission of the commission to sign this digitally?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the determination of applicability with a negative determination. Number 3 with conditions.
I make a motion to issue the determination of applicability for 66 Leverett Road with a -3 determination with conditions.
Second.
Second,
Okay, David,
aye.
Font, I, Harrington,
Aye.
Han,
Aye.
and Wilson.
Aye.
Okay. All right.
So,
Thank you.
Miriam, I have a question about that. What about the other things that you checked? The positive, let's see, so you did a -3,
Yeah.
you said, right?
-3, but there were some positives. You're right.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want me to pull that up and revise our motion since we approved?
I don't know,
that?
however, just to be official, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
How about as edited, to just rephrase the motion as approved, as edited?
Or as approved, yeah. As written, as written.
Somebody make a motion. If you want to correct the motion, please, now.
I make a motion to issue the determination for 66 Leverett Road with what was it? I didn't even know. It was a +2.
2B and 5, I think. Is that correct, Miriam?
2B, 5, and let me see if I can pull it up again. Hang on. It was a positive. It was a positive 2B.
Yeah.
5 and a negative number 3.
3. Yep. Thank you. Good.
Yes, thank you.
As noted.
Okay,
Second.
we'll do another vote. Okay, that was a second from Mary. Okay,
Aye.
Dave, DeFont, I, Harrington,
Aye.
Khan,
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Town of Shutesbury. We got through this. It wasn't easy, and I appreciate your patience. We certainly want you to be successful with this project and are doing what we can to be supportive. So I hope you can understand we had to go through and do our due diligence, and it was not meant to be obstructive.
Miriam,
Edie.
can I just make a quick comment? I just want to thank the commissioners for their willingness to listen this evening and to come to this approval. So it's very much appreciated.
Good. I was not able to see a way out of it, but we found a way through it. So I feel good about that. So moving on. We're going to move on with the rest of our agenda. So we need to go back to the January Hills enforcement order letter, but I just want to go through a few other items quickly that we can just, and I'll try to postpone items that are not time critical just because it's getting late. We have the draft minutes from August 25th, and Robin made an edit because she wasn't there and she was included. So we had corrected that. Are there any other edited changes, or can we approve those minutes? Somebody want to make a motion?
Motion to approve the August 25th meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Nope. Okay. David,
Aye.
DeFont, I.
Do I have to abstain since I wasn't there?
You abstain.
Okay.
Khan, you were there.
There either.
You weren't there? Oh, okay. Is that right? And then Wilson.
Aye.
Okay, it was
Wait.
just the three of us.
No,
Okay.
the minutes said Scott had his votes for
Yeah.
things.
I
Oh.
had him down for a vote. Yeah, because for that one that
There
was a
was.
question, I went back and yeah.
So
Okay.
you vote aye, Scott.
Okay, I'll vote aye.
So I have an emergency certification that I shared with everybody for 16 Gaslight Lane, which I haven't issued yet, and I just wanted to get the commission to ratify it. This is a property down by the lake that has a burst septic or a leaking septic pipe between the house and the tank. And the Board of Health has issued an order to have it repaired immediately. So they also have 2 trees that have fallen down that are hanging into the lake and the root balls are up in the air. So the landowner found a contractor who's going to cut up the wood and truck it all out and grade the holes where the root balls are pulled up.
Good. So approved.
Yeah, so somebody just needs to make a motion.
Motion to approve the emergency certification.
Okay, second.
I second.
Okay, David,
Aye.
Stefan, aye. Harrington,
I.
Khan,
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Next on the list, we should probably wrap up the enforcement letter. So let me see if I can pull it up. We were in the middle of it and I think I can find it. Enforcement letter. These are the conditions really for the work that he needs to do. So I'm going to screen share it. Okay, can you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so the proposed mitigation plan involves work within the A series bordering vegetated wetland and its 100-foot buffer zone as mapped on the site plan. The commission, based on site visits conducted in 2021, the commission finds that, I guess this is redundant to say by the commission. The commission finds that additional protected resource areas are present on the property, but are neither mapped nor flagged because there was this intermittent stream behind the property and there was another BVW.
Right.
The commission approves the mitigation plan with these conditions. So we said December 31st and April 15th. The required mitigation work will be based on these plans. The approved mitigation, I guess he already gave us this plan, so we don't need to say that it's going to include that swale. I have to say I was very impressed with his design. I thought it was a really well-designed stormwater system.
Yeah.
I'm always impressed by the work he
Yeah,
does.
it was good.
The planting plans, I mean, it's just really great. I asked him if he only works in Shutesbury, and he said that a lot of commissions say that to ask him that question. He's a busy guy. So this document shall be included in reference. The landowner should provide a copy of this enforcement order to the persons doing the work. Anyone performing the work is individually responsible. If any change is done, they'll inquire from us to see whether it's significant enough to require a filing of a notice of intent. We'll receive a letter in writing, a letter with an original signature from the landowner no later than 20 days from the issuance of this letter and before the commencement of any work, stating that they have read this order and understand the conditions. Erosion controls shall serve as the limit of work. No removal of trees is approved. Removal of existing vegetation will be kept to a minimum. Prior to the commencement of any activity, erosion controls should be installed. I think I already said that. This is already said. The landowner shall submit photographs of the erosion controls to the commission in lieu of a pre-construction site visit. And then that she has to maintain them at any time and until dismissal of the enforcement order. We may require her to modify the erosion controls. Construction materials be parked in the area designated as a parking area. Refueling only allowed in the driveway. Unconsolidated material be tarped. Nothing can be buried. All material protected in protected resource areas. Any material placed in protected resource areas by the landowner without express authorization shall be removed. Okay, that's just a standard boilerplate. Keep it stable, avoid during high water, stay until the site is stabilized. A post-construction site visit within 30 days after it's finished. Dismissal of the enforcement order shall be determined upon once we've determined that the work has been completed successfully. And then she's responsible for the ongoing maintenance. And then we should say the landowner shall provide the commission a letter with an original signature within 30 days of the issuance of this letter, acknowledging her responsibility to maintain the stormwater features described in the BMP operation and management. That sound right?
Yep.
Anything we want more? We done with this?
Looks
Done.
good.
Okay. So somebody want to make a motion to approve this letter?
Make a motion to approve the letter as reviewed for January Hills, 27 January Hill Road, EO.
Thank you. Second,
A second.
David,
Aye.
Font, aye. Harrington,
Aye.
Han,
Aye.
Wilson.
Hi.
All right, next that we need to take care of. The Dudley Pond, I'm just looking here to make sure there's anything. We got that. We have to approve the Sumner Mountain conservation restriction report. I sent everybody the original, the new report as well as last year's for a baseline comparison. Has everybody had a chance to read it?
Most
Yes.
of it.
Anybody want to make a motion to approve it?
Tried. I make a motion to approve the Sumner Mountain CR review report for 2022.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, David,
Aye.
Font, aye. Harrington,
Aye.
Han,
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Great. Site visits, follow-ups. So we went to 38 Egypt Road for a building permit application. This was a mudroom addition and we didn't see any wetlands in the area, so the recommendation is to approve the building permit. We also went and looked at 31 Pelham Hill Road for a building permit application for a garage addition. The only thing that was kind of interesting is that they have an artificial pond that they've created in the backyard that had a lot of frogs in it. It's a small little pond, so I'm not really sure that that counts as being jurisdictional. I know Janice has said that these artificial wetlands can become jurisdictional.
Yeah, they can. If it qualifies, there's a definition of the size of a pond in the Wetlands Protection Act. I can't remember what the size is to make it actually jurisdictional.
Is that right?
This was only a couple of feet in diameter.
Tiny. This was tiny.
Yeah, so it might not be a pond,
My husband is planning to build a pond in our backyard. I'm gonna have to talk to him about the size of that pond. Maybe we'll have to reconsider this. He's getting very excited about it. Okay, so then we have the 678 Crack Corner Road in enforcement order inspection. And so I went out there with Robin, and then I went back out with Robin and Mary. And besides stepping in dog crap, which was annoying. Yes, that happened. Yeah. What we noticed, there were a few things we noticed. One is that the site plan that was approved, there's kind of a conflicting thing, but the site plan had this kind of border of boulders that were going to be spread out between the house and the restored wetland. And what they had done is extended that line about 15 or 20 feet longer than it was on the site plan. So it was essentially routing any water from the wetland off to the side where the original drain was. Which worried me that it was again altering drainage patterns, and it wasn't on the plan. Plus, we had said that there was only going to be a 15-foot perimeter of maintained lawn, and so they had seeded all of the area below that line, so it ended up being about 40 feet of lawn in that area.
Oh, all work out in the end. Well done.
What? I'm sorry. Okay. So, you know, we talked with them about removing some of those rocks. Penny, could you mute yourself? Yeah, thanks. So, you know, so they did move some of the rocks and said they would move some more of the rocks. I suppose we could go back out to see. I feel a little frustrated that, you know, the erosion controls were in very bad condition when we first went out, and there was very clear erosion happening from the area of soil disturbance across the driveway into another wetland. And there was sediments, and they just had a sock that was just totally insufficient. And they didn't have any straw on this slope on the side yard, so it was just like a mud bath. I just feel like we need to watch this property if we really kind of want to make sure that it doesn't kind of go sideways.
Right, I mean, because they did fix the erosion controls, but I think it's because, you know, we keep going back and
right, and I sent them
want
an
to show
email.
us what they did.
Right, so I feel like one of the questions is whether we want them to do any wetland restoration in that area to the side. And I guess I'm willing to sort of sacrifice that, and they can do whatever they want with it, but I just don't want this boundary of rocks basically creating a cofferdam to protect, to redirect the water off way to the side. It felt too much. So they said they were going to move those rocks. I think that what we need to do is to do another site visit in a month.
Yeah, no, that definitely sounds like we should.
Okay. So my thought was just keeping it short and simple and just say thank you for repairing the erosion socks. We agreed that you were going to rearrange those boulders, and we'll come out in a month. We'll let you know to schedule a site visit to look at it.
Yeah.
Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, I won't have that drafted, but if you give me permission, do I have everybody's permission to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. So the 11 Pine Drive RDA, we did the site visit for that. That's been continued to the next meeting. It's on a little inlet, and it's the house and the septic system is very close to the bank of the lake, and this is going to be a tight tank. But it's a little bit of a tight squeeze to put it in. They're going to have to be careful about their erosion controls.
What's there right now? Is there an older type septic system, or is it just a tight tank that's failing and they're replacing it with another
I
tank?
didn't look close enough at the designs to see what they were taking out. I just was looking at what they were putting in. And I think it may have been a tight tank. Okay, so there's that. I'm trying to think if there's anything, I wanted to talk about Dudley Pond for a couple minutes, because we really haven't had a chance to talk about this. Oh, the other thing is we went out and looked at this culvert on Montague Road near Dudley Pond where the head wall is collapsing. And I had gotten a very enigmatic email, which I shared with everybody from Tim Hunting, saying that it needed to be repaired, but not really saying how he wanted to go about getting it permitted. I think we should be clear with the highway department how we want it to be proposed. And I have a phone call set up for tomorrow with Rita Farrell to talk about it, but I'd sort of like to have some guidance from the commission. Do we want to require an RDA? Do we want them to do this under an emergency certification? What group?
I always think RDAs, you can include more conditions and things than you can with an emergency certification. And like you're saying, an emergency cert needs to be proposed as an emergency from like the Board of Health or somebody. And I'm not so sure just having that failing head wall comes across as an emergency. It's not, you know, the road isn't washing away or anything.
Road isn't, no, and no, the pipe is solid. The pipe is not going to collapse. It's a fairly new conduit pipes, just the head wall that's collapsing.
Yeah.
I think what you said before, we would ask them to submit RDAs.
So submit an RDA. You know, the issue here is that they aren't very good at doing this and they don't like doing it. And they would really like us to write the RDA or us to have Carrie do it. And I think that's putting Carrie on the spot to be writing it. And I feel like we need a better process. And of course, if we had a standing notice of intent, order of conditions for maintenance, and none of this would be really necessary because it would be done, but okay. I just feel like it is, I know that the historical practice in town has been for Linda Scott when she was the land use clerk to assist the town in putting together these RDAs and also serving as the land use clerk. I feel like it really borders on the edge of self-dealing. I feel like it really is a problem for us. And I wish that they would hire a consultant to do the permitting for them. So that's why I wish. Or hire somebody like a former probation commission member.
Yeah, I mean, and also I don't think RDAs are that complicated, you know,
No, they're not.
you know, as a Concom, we don't need to, we don't demand that much for an RDA. The form is certainly simple. All you'd have to do is put some kind of a design diagram together and a little narrative, but you know,
Yes.
I don't know.
Well, and it needs to be an accurate narrative because as we found out with the last RDA that we had with the highway department, they need to give us the complete picture of what they're doing. They
Yeah.
can't give us a one paragraph blurb and then do 5 pages of work.
Mhm.
They need to be, it needs to be comprehensive. And I think we'll just have to make that really clear that this needs to be all of the work that they're going to do.
Yeah.
The fire department did their own RDA or whatever before, right?
No.
No?
I think that it was Tessa Dowling that put it together for them.
Yeah,
The
you
last
really,
time,
you really
that's-
shouldn't. If you have to
No,
rule
nobody-
on these things.
What?
If you have to rule on these things, you and your staff should not be writing them.
Yeah, because, you know, I mean, I appreciate that Carrie would be willing to do it, but I would have to oversee and review it with her. And then I feel like it's a conflict.
It is, yeah, it is.
And so, you know, I'm happy to review applications and give feedback to applicants. And I did that in this case with Fuss O'Neill because they had problems with the legal ad and the abutter notification, and they had to redo them. And they didn't have any erosion controls in their proposal, so they had to redo that. So, you know, I'm happy to give that kind of feedback, but I just don't want to be writing the proposal. I feel like, you know, we have instructions that are pretty clear that your average landowner muddles through. So I feel like the town should do it. So I'm going to, if I have your permission, I'm going to impress that upon Rita that they need to find somebody to do this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's that. The other piece that I just wanted to like share is conversations around the dam. So as I mentioned, there's an emergency certification that we're going to have to do in the next week or two for a beaver dam removal at the dam. And I'm waiting for the landowner to find a contractor, and then I'm going to issue it. We're kind of holding, as a courtesy to her, I'm holding this up until she has the order, because the beaver dam removal permit from the Board of Health, it has to be, is a 10-day permit. So she's trying to line up a contractor. The dam, I've visited this dam several times, and I've read through a bunch of the literature in the files about it. And this dam has a very storied history and has been failing, has been leaking, and has been unsafe for years. And the Office of Dam Safety would like to see it removed. And they've ordered the applicant, the town, the owners to remove it. And the owners don't have the funds to do it. So I think that there is some interest on behalf of one of the landowners to find a solution, even if that meant perhaps selling the property. There's been some talk of different funding sources for the dam removal, including Eversource, that is going to be having some permitting before us and before several other conservation commissions in the next month or two. And they're interested in finding a mitigation project. And they like the idea of a dam removal as a mitigation project, maybe combining with other towns, like a combined mitigation project.
How would they do that on private land though?
Well, I think they can do that if with the consent of the owner. Or it could be part of a deal involving the transfer of the land into public or nonprofit status. So it could be, for example, that Kestrel Land Trust has an interest in buying this property, or buying it and gifting it to the town of Shutesbury as conservation land. That's one of the things that Kestrel's interested in. And they have some funding lined up as potential, but they don't want to deal with the dam. So they have had negotiations with the landowners in the past about acquiring this 200-acre parcel, which, by the way, you've looked at a lot, haven't you, Janice? You know all about it.
Yes.
You've done work for you did some consulting for the Browns, right?
I helped him do a notice of intent at one point on the dam repairs ages ago.
Was that like the repairs that were never completed and now are leading to an unsafe situation?
Yeah, I think it was again because there wasn't funding. They were just trying to do what they could on their own, and they needed much more, help than that.
So what I can tell from the record is that in the mid-90s, David Brown excavated this training wall on the side of the dam and then never filled it in. And so now it's just an exposed wall and the water is leaking through it.
I'm trying to remember why he did that. Did he say?
Yeah, he thought he was going to reinforce it with rebar and concrete.
Oh, yes, I do remember that. Yeah.
But then he never did. And he got hit with enforcement orders because he didn't have any permits. And so he got an engineering plan and he got an Army Corps engineer, an Army Corps permit and a wetland permit and a DEP or a DCR permit. And then he never did the work.
Mm-hmm.
So around 2000, he got all these permits and then the permits expired and he never did any more work. I don't know.
I just don't think we should use our Eversource options on the
So I
dam,
was down there
private dam.
today and visiting it and showing it to representatives from the Leverett Conservation Commission who had reached out to me and were interested in looking at it. And I got permission from Lois Brown to show it to them. So they're very interested because obviously it has an impact also on wetlands that are in.
Yeah. Oh. You froze, Miriam.
No, am I still frozen? Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
There you go. You're back.
Yep. All my family members are streaming upstairs. Or something, I don't know. Okay, well, we'll table that for more discussion at a different time. All right, I don't think I have anything else that's critical right now to go over with
Just
everybody.
have our LWAC my LWAC update.
Oh, we do need to talk about that. Yes, please go ahead, Mary.
I just have two requests from the LWAC committee. So one of the things is the committee approved purchasing an 18 by 24 sign from Amherst Copy and Design to install at the boat ramp. And they wanted to read, boat traffic is counterclockwise and speed limit is 30 miles per hour. I guess, I mean, those are in the regulations but nobody's following them. So they want to put up a sign at the boat ramp. And they'll take care of doing it. They just wanted to make sure that we didn't have any objections to them doing the sign.
I don't have any objection as long as that's all they have and they don't start adding things that aren't bylaw, because there has been a tendency for things to be posted down there by LWA that are not part of the bylaw. There was
No, this would only be bylaw.
So Mark also said that there was a plan to put permanent marker buoys in the lake. And I asked him if they were considering getting Chapter 91 licenses for that, because my understanding is DEP requires a license if you're putting buoys in the lake, and then he didn't respond.
So the buoys are already, they put the buoys that he's talking about are put out with LWA when they put out their beach rafts. They put out a buoy up to the 150 feet. Which is already approved, and they just wanted to make it 200 feet for the wake boats, because the recommendation is that it won't erode the banks if you have 200 feet instead of 150. But that's nothing new and it's not permanent.
But Mary, I know it's not permanent, but approved by who? Because according to DEP, they were ordered to remove those last summer.
Not the markers for the boat. The racing markers they were ordered to reprove, not the ones that say that on the beaches where the rafts are, to mark off where swimmers are so the boats don't come in. That's not a DPA regulation for that one.
Well, I'm not sure I'm understanding where you're talking about these.
So the markers that they put in, so on the 3 beaches that they have, when we put the raft out for the swimming areas, they put a buoy that marks the end of the 150 feet, so the boats don't come too close to the swimming areas. And that's
for the Lake Association's private beaches.
Yes. And it's just a buoy that lets boats know that this is the marker. And it goes up, we put it out, and then it comes back in. Like they're all out of the water now because they're all in. They'll go back out when this.
And have those been approved by DEP?
As far as I know, they've been approved, because I mean, last 20 years they've been there here. As far as I know, it's a long-term thing. The only question that they had was moving it out a little further to address the complaints about the wake boats. But they've been an approved thing.
Penny, did you want to
make
make a comment? Penny, you have your hand raised. Did you want to make a comment about this?
Well, I had a comment about this and a question. And this is partly what I want to say addresses Mary's request about the sign that LWAC wants to put up. There has been, sorry, this has been a long meeting and I am tired, as I'm sure all of you are. All the commission worked with LWAC several years back. It's actually a number of years back at this point, to consolidate all signs into a kiosk that's right at the boat launch. And so I would respectfully request that the sign Mary talked about regarding the sign that LWAC wants to put up be included within that kiosk rather than it being a separate sign, because at one point there were signs all over the place close to the boat launch. So
where is it? Where is this kiosk?
It's right at the boat launch.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about.
All right, I'll just ask Mark about it. I don't remember seeing a kiosk, but
there's a kiosk. If you're looking, if you're standing at the boat launch, it is immediately to the right of the boat launch. And it was a project that was funded by both the Conservation Commission and LWAC to consolidate all the signs that were accumulating right there. So it would be great if that would go there. And just as an aside, the commission also needs to post information in there that is to include rules for using that site and the South Brook Conservation Area and a map of the area, which are both projects that are still underway. So that's for a future meeting. But the other thing that oh gosh, now I'm forgetting. Sorry, it's been a long night. And I tuned out for a minute. Did you decide about what's happening with the CR monitoring visit on Old Orchard for Saturday morning?
No, we have not.
Okay,
So
I
before
would
you
just like, I would like to get that confirmed because several of us are waiting to hear and are planning our weekend based on what you decide.
Yeah.
You.
So Beth and Robin and Mary, I don't know if Mary, would you be available?
No.
No, unfortunately,
I can't.
Scott, would you be available?
It only requires 2 people, but it would be good to get this done before the weather gets any worse. And I know from talking with members of our neighborhood, this is the only weekend where multiple people are available.
Scott, would you be available?
Yeah. Or are you thinking like first thing in the morning?
9 o'clock takes about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and it's kind of fun.
Yeah, I could make that work.
Okay. All right. So Scott and I'll do it.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you. I will
Yeah.
exit now. Thanks for all your hard work. Good night.
Right before you go, Penny, I
Yep.
think this issue around sign is important because I think we need to figure out how big a sign needs to be in order to retain enough space for these other pieces.
It needs to be a small sign because the understanding is that half the space in the kiosk goes to the Conservation Commission and half goes to LWAC for whatever rules they feel are important to post there. So it needs to
Okay.
be small.
So Mary,
Yeah,
haven't
I'll
looked
bring
at
that
the
back to
kiosk
their meeting.
recently.
Their meeting is on Saturday. I'll bring that back.
Mary, why don't you let them know that, you know, the agreement was that half of that can be there so they can work within that framework.
Yeah, I mean, I think what they were looking to do is just add on to where those other signs were, not
There are
add
no
on to
other
the current
signs right
sign.
there should be no other signs close to the boat launch at this point.
All right, because I'm gonna go, I'll have to go look, because well, Mark looks all the time. I'll have to ask Mark.
Okay,
Okay, nope, I'll bring back that feedback.
that would be great. Thank you, Mary.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you for the history about that, Penny. I appreciate that. That's really important. All right.
Yeah, it's hard to keep track of all this stuff, isn't it?
Okay, I think we're done. I don't think we need to go over anything else tonight. I think that we do have another site visit that I'm blocking on that we need to do. And I think it's I can't remember who it was, and I think I tentatively suggested Sunday morning. Is Sunday morning out for a site visit?
I'm away all weekend.
You're away all weekend?
Yeah.
Would anybody be available on Sunday morning?
Yeah, I can't
If it was
Sunday, this Sunday.
Okay. Well, I will probably try to come up with a different time then for that person. I'm just drawing a blank about who it is, so I'm
Okay.
sure I'll figure it out, find it. Okay, so our next meeting is on the 27th. And somebody want to make a motion to adjourn? It's 10:07.
Motion to adjourn at 10:07.
Second.
Second.
Okay, David.
Aye.
Font, aye. Harrington.
Aye.
Han.
Aye.
And Wilson.
Bye.
All right.
Aye.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.